This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Andrew, Sunzi, Red Pants, Holly, Natasha, Laura, Gorotica, Vance, Boezy, Jeremy, Ali, Nathan, Mr. Ragebomb, Libby, Wes Dreskel, Aaron, Kristen, Tia, Lauren, Jonathan, Kate, Alex, Isaac, and Karoon. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this horror virgin vampire community. And if you want to hang out with us, do so in the Vampire Book, where we vampire daily. I do love that when his slaves go to burn down his house.
Good. Sorry.
I know, right? I've never seen someone yes and so hard in my life. He like walks out and is like, "Oh, you're gonna burn down my house? Yeah, let's fucking burn down my house." And he like helps them burn down his house, frees all of them. I was like, damn.
In the book, he kills them all afterwards.
What?
Yeah, he kills them all afterwards.
Oh my God.
I just like in the vampire universe, theater people are also still weird. and kind of just like not cool.
Accurate.
You know?
That is so hurtful, but accurate to my experience as a theater person.
We have a theater group and we live underneath the theater. I'd be like, I am going back to the new world. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll figure this all out on my own.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd, which means I don't like watching scary movies, but this week we didn't because our guest picked one that wasn't, and our guest is Jon Risinger.
Now, hold on. You don't think this is a scary movie?
Okay, John, this is actually one that I've seen before.
Okay.
I had a good friend in high school that like convinced me to watch it. So we watched it in his basement. And I didn't realize at the time that it might have been like a, hey, are you this way too?
Yeah, I think that's what that was.
But watching it through tonight, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's what that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're still friends. I could ask him.
That's funny. I mean, I'll have you know that Interview the Vampire has a history of freaking people out.
Really?
So, yeah, they had a test screening that they did with the movie where the majority of the audience said it was too gory and violent.
Yep.
And bloody.
Really?
The 90s was a different time.
Yeah. Reportedly, Oprah Winfrey, who's a big friend of Tom Cruise, left halfway through the film because it was too much for her.
Kirsten Dunst wasn't allowed to see it.
No. And on a personal level, I used to be like you, where I didn't like horror movies, but it's because I was a little kid who was raised in a very sheltered home.
So was I. Yeah. Yeah.
My introduction to this movie was actually watching the Oscars, because they had two Academy nominations for this, and one was, I believe, I think it was Tom got nominated.
Mm-hmm.
For best Nicolas Cage impression?
He, you know how when they do the Oscars, they play a clip?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They played the clip of Lestat biting Louis, that whole scene of them floating up over the ship and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the imagery of Tom's like fangs biting in and the blood gushing out of Louis, I had nightmares for weeks.
Oh, I would have if
wow.
I'd seen this as a child, for sure.
Yeah.
Been scared.
Yeah.
But did you see it after that? Like, when was the first time you saw this movie? It couldn't have been tonight.
No. It wasn't until like decades later that I was like going through, I finally had come into my love of horror films. Now, as a gray-haired, scruffy-faced queer, I'm like, yeah, of course I love horror movies.
On brand.
Yeah. You kind of like, as I came out of the closet, I also came out of the closet of like loving horror films. And I went back and I think one of my original loves of vampire movies, I love vampire movies, is one of the worst ones, which is Underworld.
Oh, Underworld is wild.
It's so good. It's so good.
We'll have to have you back for Underworld.
Yeah, we'll have to do Underworld. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love at least the first two of the movies. And I went back and I was rewatching all this stuff. And so, yeah, I watched Late as an Adult. And then I had rewatched it the most recently when I've been dating a lovely lady for a few years now. And she's from New Orleans. And this is one of her favorite movies of all time. The kind where like first time I watched it with her, she kept reciting every single line of the movie to a point where I had to tell her like, hey, could you stop? I want to watch the movie.
We can recite it later to each other, but let's just watch the movie now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mikey and Paige, when was the first time you saw it?
I saw this, I was probably in high school, I think,
Yeah.
the first time I saw this movie, and hadn't watched it in a long time. So in high school, I completely missed the heavy homoerotic subtext
same.
of this film.
Fully missed it. Yeah.
And hadn't watched it in a long time, but did read the book also in high school, had not reread it since. But when we did Queen of the Damned, because we kind of did this backwards because we did Queen of the Damned first. Because those were the two that I read of the Vampire Chronicles and then got into other horror books, etc. But yeah, I remember watching it, reading the book, completely missing the subtext, and then watching it again last night. I was like, oh, it's blatant.
It's saturated. Even though they tried early in production, they were playing around with the idea of, in order to usurp having to be, gay, they were thinking of gender bending the characters and casting women as the characters because people are often a little bit more accepting of ladies liking ladies on screen. So it was like we were actually a half a step away from getting Cher in this movie.
Oh, I would have watched
but
that.
fully do want a Cher version. Yeah, I love this version, but I would love a Cher version as well.
And I have lists of who all was potentially going to be in this movie because they're you could fill a book with the people who could have maybe been in this movie.
Not the actual book, because that book is fucking long.
That's true. That book is very long. I thought Brad Pitt was gorgeous at the time when I saw this the first time.
Yes.
Oh my God. You can't take your eyes off of him. But even back then, as a teenager, I was like, this whole Kirsten Dunst thing is a little off.
Oh, yeah.
And it's worse in the book. It is worse in the book.
I'm sure it's worse in the book. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's definitely in the movie, too.
No, the book is worse because he calls Louis
worse.
Her lover the whole time.
Yes. Well, because she's like a 30-year-old woman in a child's body, which presents problems everywhere you turn.
No, 70-year-old woman.
I mean, yeah, by the end, she
it's
is
even
about
worse.
70
It
for
is
sure.
older. Yeah.
I mean, which makes this movie, it's going to be fun to talk about that section, but it is what it is. It's in there. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. It's like that one piece of it that they left out.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I saw the movie probably the year it came out or afterwards. My parents rented it and I watched it with them or whatever. And then I watched it as more of an adult. I read the first 4 Vampire Chronicles books. It's so interesting because there's so much sexual tension between every character. Every character loves everyone very deeply. Lestat changes his mother into a vampire and they get very close for a long time in his book.
Okay. I hate that.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. But the book's but their sexual organs don't work. So they basically put their foreheads together and they're we're really connected. And they walk around a lot talking. And so it's a very long book of talking. And you're I wish they would just hook up and then just go all the way with it,
Well, you're talking about Lestat and his mother, but I understand
all vampires.
Okay.
Everybody.
I just wanted you to clarify that you weren't specifically talking about that relationship.
There's passages in the book where they're looking at their penis in the mirror and they're this organ does not work anymore. And I'm this is okay. All right. Why not? Why would you do this as an author? I don't understand.
I don't know. And I stand by maybe her publisher was kind of silencing her a bit at the time because she was writing right before she wrote Vampire Chronicles. She wrote the Sleeping Beauty series, which is explicit.
I will say the inability to have physical sex does make them more angsty, I think, for the movies and books.
Yeah, so much.
I don't personally think a lot of vampire movies are scary, but I do like this. It's a good film. It's a really high quality horror film. I just don't find it scary.
Oh, I mean, this is a very big budget horror movie, especially for the time.
Yeah.
I do think it was smart to make Claudia 15 or whatever instead of 5 years old.
I think
she's
12.
9. Oh, is she 12?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Well, she was 10 when she filmed it. By the time it was done, she was turning 12 and her parents still wouldn't let her see the movie. They thought it was too scary. I'm sure she's seen it now.
Of course. I'm sure she's seen it now. She is amazing in this movie, though.
She got nominated.
I think everyone's pretty great in it. But yeah, she is. I honestly don't think I've seen her act this on ever since this. But honestly,
she is
as
great
she
in it.
grew up, she got into that romantic lane where you're not really asked to do this kind of acting a lot.
Yeah.
Because I bet she could still do this. She could do it when she was a kid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's amazing in this.
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find another child actor that doesn't have the last name Fanning or Breslin that could turn in a performance like this.
Yeah. I did really love that when Lestat and Brad Pitt started having trouble in their relationship, they were like, we should bring a child into this.
We should have a baby.
That's Lestat's idea.
Well,
you know?
I mean, yeah,
And,
that has a lot of Lestat energy in my mind.
the book is a lot of Louis gets turned. And in every scene in the book, you might as well just add 4 years. Everything takes 4 years in the book.
Yeah.
So he goes on a lot of walks in New Orleans, describes New Orleans, and he's like, what is evil? And then there's a lot of that. Like a lot of monologuing internally.
I remembered being surprised between this and Queen of the Damned in the books that this was all monologues for like the entire book.
Yeah.
And then Queen of the Damned is like, also there's a secret society. Also he's a rock star. Or I guess the next one's a rock star.
So let's talk about that because Lestat is straight up a villain in this book. And then because he becomes so popular, she retcons the shit out of him in the next 2 books.
Yeah.
Yes.
I really wish they had like planted an Easter egg in like the final scene with Lestat and Brad Pitt, where he's like in the chair or whatever. Like at the end of that scene, him being like, also, have you heard of Guns N' Roses? They kind of slap. I'm thinking about going that direction. Like,
Except that he went the new metal direction.
I know
I
did.
think Tom Cruise did a good Lestat.
Oh, he did. Tom Cruise is great in this.
The next book basically is his story. And he's like, basically like they explain it away like yada yada, like, he was in like a rough patch when he did the whole Louis 200 years thing.
He was going through a hard time for those 200 years.
That's basically what it said. And then the next book, you know how this book, he never tells Louis anything about like where they come from or anything like that?
Yeah.
That his master never told him anything or whatever. They retcon the shit out of that where Lesat's just lying to him the whole time and knows all the answers.
Love it.
And that's my thing is like, as an adult, I'm like, this is a manipulative, toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And Louis should have gotten out because, like, he definitely would have done anything to keep him there. That's the whole reason Claudia's there. But,
Exactly.
you know, the books don't necessarily articulate that great.
Yeah. I think the Vampire Lestat book was my favorite one. The Queen of the Damn book is like the Avengers of Vampires.
Yes, it is.
Did they bring Dracula back?
No, but it's like they
Might as
set
well.
up all these characters like Armand and then Lestat's mom and Louis. They're like the most powerful vampires in the world. And they all come together to fight Aaliyah.
Aaliyah.
That's funny. I've never seen Queen of the Damned.
Missing out. And by
John.
missing out, I mean it's terrible in a way that is so unique.
Oh wait, actually wrong. I've watched the last 20 minutes.
That's the best 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's pretty buck wild to jump into that movie in the last 20 minutes. I didn't even know when I watched it was part of Anne Rice's like Vampire Chronicles.
Yes.
And so unless someone tells you that, I don't think you can really pick that up in the last 20 minutes of the movie.
You absolutely can't. It feels so. I mean, all of Queen of the Damned feels so different from like Interview does, right? Like
Yeah.
Interview has this
Oh,
cool
yeah.
like gothic tone to it. And Queen of the Damned is just insanity. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't read either of the books, but I don't know if the books sort of are the same. But yeah, Queen of the Damned is a perfect, insane movie.
My sister watched Queen of the Damned first because we did it first, and she just
Yeah.
watched it when we did it because
Oh.
we also grew up in a religious home where horror movies were not the norm. Although they did let me watch Aliens when I was like 8. Anyway,
Yeah, that's because your parents make good decisions, Paige. We
they
talked
did
about
make great
this. Yeah.
decisions
Yeah,
sometimes.
you turned out normal.
I turned out normal with a shoulder fetish. She texted me. She was like, "How could the first one be good?" If this is the second one. And I was like, you don't understand, it won Oscars.
Yeah, like this is a really good movie. Like Interview is a legit, in my opinion, great movie. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I like Lestat as a villain in this film because it's like, you know, he loves killing people. Like that's his like number one favorite hobby. He loves it. He revels in it. And then Louis immediately turns and he's like, I don't really like this part of this whole thing. Of,
Yeah.
like killing the people. And, then,
Yeah.
and like that's their whole crux of their relationship right there.
But dude, that's the main part.
Well, yeah.
I don't really think Lestat was a villain. He was just like going through a 200-year rough patch or whatever. You
That's
know?
true. That's true. He
It
was like,
influences his
eat, pray,
music.
love. Eat people, pray, and love.
Eat people, pray to the devil, love.
Well, I think one of the great themes of the movie and the books in general it's portrayed in this movie is the loneliness that comes with
Yes.
Eternity.
not only the eternity, but the theme of the outsider, the one who has to hide, the one who is confined to only a certain space of society. You know, with vampires, it's like the time of day and where they can sleep and all that kind of stuff. And when you pair that with you have to be this way forever, then yeah, it's probably going to give you warped ideas of what companionship can be, should be, paired with like the fact that you literally feed off of all the other intelligent creatures that are around.
Yeah.
So it's gonna mess you up, and if you live for hundreds of years, I'm not saying we should forgive Lestat of what he did, but like if someone never dies, you have to give them a chance to have some redemption arc, because like
they got time.
Yeah, you've got time, and there's only so many of you guys around, like that was a whole part of like the third act of the movie, was like them going and like being like, there's no vampires in Europe, there's none, we can't find them. They spend so much time looking for others, and so
they really only find like 12. How many are there in France?
Yeah, I mean that Parisian French theater group, that was the only ones they
Théâtre
found.
des Vampires.
Yeah.
In the books, they find other vampires in Europe, but they're like feral.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so they're not like cool people. They're like, they just come out of their coffins, feed, and go back into their coffins. They don't really talk or communicate or anything. And so they're like, all right, peace. It's hard to find a modern, like, cool live in a house vampire.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
But then they retcon all that the next couple books too, where there was like hundreds of thousands. There's like thousands of vampires around, spread out. They just don't like reveal themselves to you or whatever.
Yeah. I do like the vampire as other. I feel like people play with that in almost every vampire story, even Blade.
Yeah.
Where he's the Daywalker.
The Dayman, yes.
The Dayman. One of my favorite versions is the way True Blood handles it, where they literally paired it with a civil rights battle, basically. And it was out at the time that like marriage equality was the question. And so like it really, like, especially if you look at what was happening at the time, it is pretty powerful to be like, this is how you're treating people. And I think this movie it doesn't go into the political aspects of it, but I do think that's where a lot of that homoerotic subtext comes in of like,
me too.
You are othered, and I think that's important to talk about with this book, especially when it was written and the movie when it came out, because this is an important Oscar-winning movie that a lot of people completely miss that subtext of, self-included, when the first time.
Same. I was going to say that when I was in high school, I was like, man, that was a pretty creepy movie. I just missed it completely.
Brad Pitt's so pretty. So pretty.
No, I think it's a powerful metaphor that a lot of people have been othered throughout their lives, and they can grab onto it. And then, everybody wants to kill the normal people. So I get it.
You were like normal people.
Quote unquote.
Almost everybody's been othered.
I'll say it again. I'm not excusing Lestat. However, the guy introduces like early on in it that like the I think, in my opinion, the ideal option as a vampire, which is, okay, you're faced with the fact that you do have to feed off of other people. You don't have to kill them. You could, but like it becomes difficult to stay secret if you're just draining people and then letting them go. But he offers to Louis. He's like hunting the evil, hunting the bad people. Like none of these people are necessarily innocent if you can find, he does that in that scene where he's they're in the party and talking about the lady who had her little, I think he calls him like a fop.
Yes.
Murdered her husband and then tries to get Louis to eat her, but then Louis eats her dogs, which is pretty funny.
Well, and then he rips her head like all the way to like the side. Like
full
he
snap.
overly breaks it. Yeah.
Well, Lestat comes, and has to save him from it.
Lestat Stallone's her neck for sure. Yeah.
He's a little paranoid. You can tell that like the villagers have come with pitchforks and torches to his house before.
He's aware of like the importance of their secrecy and like, because he even like, he's the one who keeps chastising Claudia on, we don't eat in the house.
Yeah.
Don't do it here. So like he's very much the dad who's just like trying to keep everyone to, not to screw this up. He's got his whiny boyfriend who's going to screw everything up.
Mopey the whole time.
I mean, it does pretty feel like they are in a relationship early on, like Lestat and Brad Pitt, and then they break up because that relationship is toxic, and of course a child wouldn't solve it. So Brad Pitt and the child fuck off to Europe, and then he falls in love with Antonio Banderas, and then that goes badly, and then they leave. Like,
well, don't forget, they attempted to murder Lestat twice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get away. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is an abusive relationship on some level.
It is vampire sleeping with the enemy. You're right.
Rewatching it this time, somehow this time I was blown away even more by what you were saying, Michael, that Antonio Banderas is just gorgeous in this
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
The hair is a little wild. I would have loved a little more natural hair from him and that kind of thing.
Sure.
You know, it's very straight and clearly a wig and that kind of thing. But like when he comes out on the stage in the theater, and that's not even the first time we see him, but it's like he has that entrance. The man makes an entrance.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
Lord.
He's got that red floor length
so
coat
good.
like thing on, the
yeah.
fire behind him. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
awesome.
he's definitely a theater kid.
yeah.
Mikey, if I could walk into every room that way, I absolutely would, though.
You do walk into rooms that way. You're like,
We've
it's
been trying to
July,
tell you
this
about
is
your
a
red leather jacket.
Yeah, exactly, Paige.
I do actually have 2 red leather jackets.
I'm like, it's August. We don't need this.
I'm wearing a leather jacket right now.
I can tell.
Yeah.
In your home.
Yeah, in your home sitting down to record a podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wearing sweatpants, which is a normal in-home item of clothing.
Yeah, I've got my workout shorts and a t-shirt and socks on.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we should just get into this movie so we can go through it scene on scene before you guys turn John on me.
Yeah.
All right.
I forgot about one thing from the books. That,
Oh, okay.
So vampires can like read each other's like thoughts and souls.
Yeah.
But not if you turn that person.
Yeah.
So if you really like them and turn them into a vampire, you can never read each other's mind.
Oh, so you get someone else
It's
to
only
turn them.
other people's. Yeah.
Okay.
They explored a lot of that stuff. I don't know if any of you watched the AMC series.
Not
I
yet.
want to now. I was like, I need to check it out.
I didn't even know it existed until last night when I Google searched the movie poster for this.
I heard they let them have actual sex.
Well,
Yeah.
one, it's very good. You really need to watch it.
Awesome.
I was worried. My girlfriend was worried also. She's from New Orleans. She loves this book. She wants these things to be good portrayals, and it was so good. We loved it, and it is so much gayer and just
Nice.
like
Yes.
there's like in the first like episode or 2, there's like full frontal like sex with the 2 vampires, floating in the air.
Because that's how you would do it. If
Yeah.
you're going to go to space and not fucking zero gravity. Like, you're 100% going to do that, right? So if you're a vampire, you're going to do it too.
oh, that'd be
I
hard.
feel like tough to get traction.
You grab the hips. What are we talking about? Like, should we really walk through
It
it?
would be easier as a vampire because you can like have inertia. You can moment with your power.
That's true.
It's like in Invincible when
Yeah.
he was talking about how you
Yeah.
fly. It's like flexing
Yeah,
a
yeah.
muscle, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in space, you're just flopping around.
Yeah, space would be different. Anyways, the TV show,
Yeah.
while making big changes to Lestat because they cast a person of color and they changed it from him owning a plantation to him being the head of a brothel, essentially, and that kind of thing. They follow a lot more of the literature in certain ways, and even like the opening of the TV series, instead of the motivation of Louis being so despondent, being that his wife and child died in childbirth, it's from the book. It's that his brother is hyper religious and suddenly kills himself, out of sadness and that kind of thing, and proceeds on that. And I say that, Mikey, because they also explored in depth the whole like other gifts of like the telepathy and that
cool.
kind of
They
thing.
add all that stuff. Anne Rice has cool lore that she puts in a lot of the books. Like as they get older, they feed less and they do more other stuff.
Yeah, they touch on that in the movie a little bit, but they
Yeah.
never really go like deep dive, and I wish they did because I love like lore like that because I'm a comic book nerd.
Yeah.
And so that's when you're like, when you get into the details of like how their powers work, I'm like, yeah, tell me, how's it work? 'Cause when they
That's what brought me back to the books of like, oh, this vampire has special powers and controls all the. And you're like, oh, they're like a villain, and it's the dorky stuff brought me back.
Is
Yeah.
that where Stephanie Meyer got her for Twilight?
Yes,
Did
that
she
is
steal that?
absolutely where she stole
Okay.
it. I am of the belief that Stephanie Meyer stole most of her stuff from Charlene Harris, who wrote the books that True Blood is based on.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
True Blood also has that to a degree.
Oh yeah, like Skarsgård can fly.
I need to watch True Blood.
It's so wild.
Watch the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, the first 3 seasons. You don't really need to watch beyond that. But
How many
it's
seasons were
wild.
there?
Like
7.
There were 7. I watched 7 seasons of True Blood. Jesus.
Yeah, dude.
I like how you have seen all of them and you
I
had
don't
no
remember
idea.
how much it was, but I know I finished it.
The quality breaks down by like half each season too. So it's like by season 7, it's like limping along.
It's like Game of Thrones is what you're saying?
No,
Yes.
it's different because some seasons are surprisingly good, especially on a rewatch. But like 1 is good.
Yeah.
2 is a mess, but 2 was also the writer's strike season that like most people don't remember.
So it's good that Secession ends this season because next season would have sucked, is what you're saying.
That's a
Yeah,
good call.
oh yeah, yeah.
Support your local WGA member, by the way.
Yeah. Anyway, all this to say, the AMC one looked really, really interesting. A, because it sounded like they were going to actually let them have sex, and B, they cast people of color in roles that probably should have been filled by people of color the whole time.
Yeah, it's very, very good, and because it's a TV show instead of the movie. You know, you guys talk about how like in the book there's just so much more. Is they get to explore that way more, and they get into the complication of their relationship even more, and the toxicity of it, but the codependency of it.
Yeah,
and they made Claudia a little less awkward by making her a little older.
Yeah.
All right, I am ready to talk about floating boat stuff. So let's
stuff,
get
Becky,
into
or-
it. Boat stuff. It's boat stuff because Anne Rice
Sorry.
made it where their penises don't work.
Yeah.
It's like two Ken dolls mashed together.
That's why they're so angry.
I mean, yeah. Armand is 400 years old and hasn't had a sexual experience in that time.
And listen, I'm not saying anyone was right to be so violent, but
I mean, I think at a certain point you would get beyond the human confines of what sex is and would be like, oh, so it's just physical for you people?
oh, you don't just rest your foreheads together?
I don't know about that, Demolition Man.
But let's get into this movie so we can talk about it scene by scene.
All right. So we open on I believe that they're trying to make it look like the Golden Gate. It looks like the Bay Bridge instead. And at the end, it's the Bay Bridge. But it is San Francisco.
Can you guess where Paige grew up, John?
I grew up in San Francisco. Everyone always uses the Golden Gate. And it's the old Bay Bridge because we actually just rebuilt it. So
You did.
I meant to congrats you on that project, by the way. You did
Thank
a great
you.
job with
Thank
that design
you.
and management of that process. Yeah.
no, it was a clusterfuck. Anyway, so as we zoom in over the port, we enter through the window, an apartment above the street. And this is where we encounter Louis for the first time, aka Brad Pitt, with gorgeous long hair. I don't know what conditioner he's using, but it looks great.
I believe wait, is this not a wig, Paige? I thought this was a wig.
That's definitely a wig. Actually, I don't know. He did have long hair at the time, but it's probably a wig.
Okay.
I was watching an interview with him at the time, and he had long hair for some reason. It must have been just for like if they need it, but his long hair is a completely different texture than how it is. It's a wig.
Yeah.
It's a wig.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a
I
wig.
normally have terrible wigdar, so like I was like really looking forward to this movie.
I think he had it long for Legends of the Fall,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
what I think so,
also
too.
around this time. Anyway, he's talking with Christian Slater, who is some sort of writer. We don't know where he's writing from, although in the book, I believe it's one of the newspapers.
Yeah, I got like journalist as opposed to
Yeah.
like a novelist or, that kind of thing. Yeah.
He's a collector of stories.
Yes.
Collector of stories. He presents it as if it's people of New York, where he's just like, I find people on the street and I interview them. And sadly, entered a second location with one. Like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
Don't
you
do
never
that.
go with a vampire to a second location.
Yeah, don't never go with someone you met on the street to a second location without a little bit more exposition. So,
Yeah, like 3 drinks.
free drinks. He puts the cassette tape in because this movie is from the 90s. And he's like, all right, so what do you do? And he's like, so I'm a vampire and I'm just going to drop this on you immediately and then not check to see if you're okay with that information to give you time to run away. So he just starts into it where he's like, all right, I was born he doesn't even start where he was born. He was like, I was a man. I was 24 in 1791. The year that it happened, I was 24. I was younger than you were now. But at the time, hey, that was a full grown
That's
person.
old. You like died at 30s.
Yeah, he was like a middle-aged man at 24 at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where we find out that his wife and daughter had passed away about 6 months before. And he is not taking it well
No.
and is essentially resorting to self-destructive patterns
Yeah, I mean, we see him
in
like
his grief.
we see him playing cards and possibly cheating at cards, and the guy like is gonna kill him because he has anger issues, I suppose. And he's just like, please shoot me. That would be awesome if you would kill me. I would love that. And that guy is like, okay, weird.
Yeah, thanks for that scene. I was like, oh, could he take the whole shirt off though?
Of
No?
course.
Okay.
Yeah, he opens up his chest to give him a
Yeah.
shot for the bullet.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because he doesn't want the very thin fabric he is wearing to stop the bullet. That's why he does
or
that.
my eyes.
But thankfully, the woman who was there with him was like, it'd be a pity to lose a perfect chest in this world, so I'm going to take you out of here.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. There's a shortage of perfect clavicles. But in all of this commotion, in all of this attempting to get other people to kill him, he is noticed by Lestat, who is kind of following him from the second floor of the brothel, where I'm sure Lestat is hunting.
Yeah, that's what I assumed as well. But I'm sure everyone noticed him because he's Brad Pitt and he's like, welcoming death, taking his shirt off kind of vibe. I would notice him.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
I'd be like, who's that dreamboat that could definitely steal my girl?
Yeah, everyone's girl.
Yeah.
And boys. Honestly,
everybody.
he can steal anybody he wants.
But just steal because his sex organs don't work.
No, at this point, they very much do work, Mikey.
He's still human.
Brad Pitt can still have sex at that point.
Yeah.
He's too sad though.
He's not. He purchased some entertainment for the night, and I'm saying that as like of the time as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know if he gets there. You know what I'm saying? I think he's got too many emotions going on for things to work right.
Well, we don't get to see it.
Yeah.
We don't get to see it. She dips out of frame.
Oh, I guess she does. As they walk to the dock, she does start to go down on him. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is a case where she has a partner in crime and they were planning to mug him the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, and that's in the VO. He even says, like, he's walking with, and he calls her a derogatory name for a sex worker.
Yeah.
And he's like, and the pimp that's following me, because he knows what's going on. And maybe he knows what's going on telling us the story because he's recounting the events. But
yeah, I think so.
Even as he's like recounting the events, he says he knew he was there.
It aligns with his self-destructive wishes that, like, not
Yes.
only would he cheat at a card game that he gets shot at, but he would also, hook up with the lady of the night that is going to clearly, have her pimp shank him and take his money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those two immediately get Tom Cruised. Just like insta dead. All we hear is the splashes.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise kind of grabs him and floats him into the air for the first of many, many, many scenes with heavy homoerotic undertones.
Yeah, because it's not just like he grabs him and pulls him up into the air. Like their bodies are connected. Like they're
He
laying
bites
on
him
each
on
other.
the floor and they start
Yes.
floating up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that scene has to have been so like
Intimate. Yes.
Tom Cruise is just attached to his neck. It would have been very intimate. Yeah,
Unfortunately, that's the only way that he can get it up.
is to actually pull someone up into the air.
Yeah, to float up.
Yeah.
But after biting him, he drops him into the water.
Yeah.
Which, like, you gonna call later? Like,
I
come
know.
on.
Rude. Although he does call later, Paige.
He does indeed.
In the vernacular of the time, at least.
Brad Pitt walks up on the beaches of the Mississippi, goes home, and is super sick because being bit by a vampire in classic vampire lore, Bram Stoker specifically, if you do not turn, you get very ill, even if you survive the original biting.
I think even without that lore, this man has like 5 or 6 large puncture wounds on his neck and then was dropped in the Mississippi.
Yeah.
He's got
Some
something
bacteria.
at that
But it was before it was polluted a lot, So that's good.
point. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of bad stuff that was in that water, like with the way that society
It's
works.
before motors. It was like 1790.
It's not the motors I'm worried about. It's the like
Fish shit.
pond scum of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Because I mean, you think like in Louisiana, they literally have to bury their people above ground.
Yes.
Because if they don't if they put them underground, they will come back up.
They become zombies?
Yes.
No, the water table, but like
No, I know.
that's why Nicolas Cage bought a crazy mausoleum there.
I've been there.
I know. I've actually seen that. I went on a cemetery tour there.
Nicolas Cage tour. Oh, okay, cemetery tour.
If they offered a Nicolas Cage tour, I would go no matter the city, Paige.
100%.
It's more of a Washington D.C. thing where you have to go see the back of the Declaration of Independence.
I would go to that. That would be amazing.
Yeah, of course. So he wakes up sick in his house, and Lestat's there and is like, hey, notice that you hate life and that you were asking to die, but like, what if life was cool? Hey?
I did sort of think it was strange that clearly Brad Pitt is suicidal at this point in the movie, right?
Right.
And the one thing Tom Cruise does is give him eternal life.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
It's not a great sales pitch. I think he says, like, I can make all pain disappear, but then,
Yeah.
like, you'll never die. And I'm like, well, that's really the opposite of what he's going for. But
I
I guess
know.
it kind of works.
That's like someone
Yeah.
coming into a car salesman and then that car salesman selling them a bike.
That's literally me going to work and being like, how about you never, ever able to die?
But I mean, Brad Pitt does choose it, but it's weird to me that he chooses it based upon his.
He doesn't get a pretty good sales pitch.
No,
though,
I mean, he doesn't get full information. You're right.
Lestat does kind of like
Yada
glance
yada
over
over the
some
fine
things.
print.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's also on Louis to ask the questions beforehand.
Yeah, like during the interview process, you should come with questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, does this have 4 doors and a radio? Does it have a warranty?
What is the vampire culture like, and do you still let me work from home?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Big
I've been
questions.
interviewing a
we
lot
have a slide
recently.
deck. We based it on Netflix's deck until we realized that was a bad idea. Anyway, so he watches his last sunrise and sunset, which is actually pretty cool that he's like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to experience day.
Yeah.
Because I will never be able to before or after. And then meets Lestat in a graveyard where he's like, hey, you doing this? And before he can even respond, Lestat has bit him again.
Yeah.
Which that scene takes place in a great studio set that is just this great swampy cemetery.
Mossy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool looking.
They filmed so much of this movie. I think they were in London for the majority of production, and they filmed nights. But a lot of their stuff was like indoors, and so there's no place in London that's going to look like a swampy New Orleans cemetery. So they made a great set. I just have to call it out. That's a great set piece.
It really is.
And it's not very big. Like, if you really look at it, it is a small set that is very dense. So it really hides how small it is with the density of the foliage and stuff that they've added.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to point it out, because we haven't really encountered a ton of it yet, most of the effects were done by Stan Winston's team, and then they had a great set deck team as well.
All the effects hold up.
Yes,
They do.
There's one that doesn't, and it's in this scene where he cuts his wrist.
Oh, yeah. And you clearly see the skin they added to his arm to hide the tube.
Yeah.
Why'd they use their worst wrist for that shot? They used their bad
I don't
wrist.
know. Because like they do it multiple other times in the movie and it does not look bad.
No.
This is the only one, really.
The majority of the visual effects are hidden, which is a great way of saying that they're really good. The director calls it out in interviews that like he knew that them doing these visual effects were going to be so seamless was going to basically mean that they would never get nominated for an Academy Award because people wouldn't even notice them, because there's so many of those. Like, this is during the era where they were like, utilizing effects like that to do subtle changes. Like even in the wide shots of New Orleans, they were adding things like ships in the background and that
smoke.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And smoke and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and in the scene we're talking about, the angel's eyes moving.
Yeah, I love that shot.
Me too. And it looks great for the time.
The ash when it falls away looked really good too.
Yes.
I didn't even know that was CGI first time I saw it when they do that.
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
There's one that I have some fun facts about it, but in a few scenes when he picks up the rat to basically drain it and then pour it into the glass, that's an animatronic rat.
Yeah.
And like, these days, you wouldn't even bother because it's only on screen for X amount of seconds.
Yeah.
You wouldn't build an animatronic rat, but they do just so it could wiggle a bit in his hand.
That's awesome.
And I'm just like, that's the level that they're playing at in this movie. Like, that's how deep they're going.
Yeah.
Is that they're even like, they're going to notice if the rat doesn't wiggle. No, they won't.
Yeah, they'll notice it's just a doll that we're squeezing juice out of.
Yeah.
Right. We assume it's a film, Anyway, so he bites him. He's dying. He's like, do you choose this? He says yes. And then he feeds him his blood.
Yeah.
And it is very sexual. Biting and feeding in this movie, extremely sexualized.
It is. It's great, honestly. I was honestly a little mad when Antonio Banderas and him don't kiss at the end, but we can get there. We'll get there.
Sure.
With the biting and the feeding for this when he's turning him, because this happens a couple times because Lestat turns 2 people in it.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Lestat because like the first time it happens with Louis, he's like he almost drinks too much, like he's going too far, and then Claudia almost like drops Lestat by going way too much into it.
Yep.
I do love that we get 2 vampires that turn in this movie, and one of them tries his hardest to hold on to humanity, but Claudia, when she gets turned, is like, oh, we're murdering people? Fuck yes, I've wanted to do
Sounds
this
great.
forever. Yeah.
Well, because she's a child.
Yeah.
Hey, 13-year-olds are evil.
Well, in the book, she's 5, and in this movie, she's like 10. But they explain it as like children don't understand the danger of excess.
Yeah.
Just in general, and because they would need a parent to be like, hey, we don't do this so that we're nice people or whatever. And instead she has Lestat, who is a cold-blooded killer. So it just makes her even more of a cold-blooded killer. And we'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah.
So when he wakes up, or rather dies and then comes back,
Right.
The statue seems to be alive. And he says no words can describe it. I do think this is one of those things that Twilight was like, we could do better, and fails miserably. Because when people turn in Twilight, you actually see... and their world just kind of like shimmers.
Yeah,
like the whole
saturation
world shimmers.
effect.
Yeah.
Yes, because the movie's all gray, and then they just warm tone it, and they're like, ooh.
A great another piece of media that tried to attempt this that I thought did a better job was is it Midnight Mass or Black Mass?
I think it's Midnight Mass. Yeah.
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass. Black Mass is the Johnny Depp
Yes,
gangster,
yeah.
which isn't vampires, to be very clear.
Yeah.
Although he could have almost been in this movie.
Yeah. Midnight Mass, they have that kind of a moment where they tried to do a shot of through the eyes of someone who was seeing the world in a different way, and I thought it was better. But yeah, they don't even try. They just we're just looking at Brad Pitt's contacted eyes, with his contacts in.
Yeah.
That apparently he hated. He almost walked off the set.
He did.
They do look cool, though.
Yeah.
So thank you for your sacrifice, Brad. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I do like that. They yada yada. Like, I saw the world differently. You would understand, so I'm not even going to try to explain it. We'll just move on.
It's like the way Looper explains time travel.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I do like that it looks at an owl, and it's just like, ooh, but...
It is.
Yeah.
I remember that specifically because I was rewatching this with my girlfriend this week, and we have a thing that whenever we love animals. She's a cat lady, that kind of thing, and we're always talking about when we see animals that we don't even know, we're just like, that's my friend. And when
I'm the same way.
When the owl shows up, she's like, hey, that's my friend, because she loves that shot of the owl. It's a good owl shot. They had an owl for the day and they used it.
I know.
Yeah, of course.
And the owl got a hero shot in this movie, and that's dope.
Yeah, this may be upsetting, but my intrusive thoughts, my toxic brand of intrusive thoughts is, how would we ruin this immediately?
Yeah.
And I could not have laughed harder than if the owl had started to take off and Louis just snatched it out of the air and ate it.
They were saving that for the poodles, but yeah, it would have been a moment.
Anyway, we cut back to him and Christian Slater, who's just like, okay, so let me ask you some vampire questions then. Crucifixes? And he's like, love them. It's a vibe.
Yeah.
He doesn't
great.
explain it. He doesn't explain it either.
Yeah.
These are the questions you should have asked before you were turned.
Yeah, right? I love a crucifix moment. Can I still have my crucifixes?
Yeah.
Well, and also reflections. Yeah, I still have a reflection. There's a few other ones that are stake through the heart won't actually kill them, apparently.
Which is weird. This is the only vampire property where that won't work.
Well, and we see him cut them in half later.
You have to decapitate them or burn them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or drain all their blood.
Twilight as well is you have to decapitate them, which is why at that crazy end battle that we have not gotten to yet, they just rip heads for like 20 minutes.
God, I can't wait
great.
just to see like Lego heads popping off with no blood. That's going to be great.
Basically, yes. Yes. But yeah, so stakes through the heart don't work. Coffins are a necessity. And then he basically goes back into his flashbacks of going into the coffin for the first time and then having to find blood. And they first start at like a group of, I'll say, travelers celebrating. And there is a woman who is selling ale and they murder her. But this is also one of the first times where we have the orgasmic nature of being bitten, where it's almost like for a moment people don't realize that they've been bit and they kind of die in the throes of ecstasy. But if you give them a chance to figure out what has happened to them.
Yeah, like that effect doesn't last very long. Yeah.
It's like a short acting drug in their teeth,
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Sort of like a snake will inject venom into you, but instead of it like hurting you, like that initially makes you feel like ecstasy, and then it wears off in like a minute. And then you freak the fuck out.
Yep. But this is also where they introduce the idea of like you can't drink dead blood.
Which is not in the books.
In the books, they get dirty.
Yeah.
But they write it in as, I thought it was still good in the movie where it was like, it's the kryptonite, kind of thing.
Yeah. But anyway, he feels super sorry for killing that woman.
Oh, he didn't kill her.
Well, he didn't. Lestat did.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
participated.
Yeah, he did feed on her, which I think this is the first time we see him feed on a human victim, and then he doesn't for a while.
No.
Yeah, and he does feed on her to a degree. He's kissing her and there's blood and everything.
Yeah.
So he is feeding, but Lestat's the one who kills her.
Yeah, no, he's feeding, but Lestat has that line where, Louis breaks up. He's like, I won't kill her. And Lestat's like, I already did it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, don't worry, I took care of it.
Yeah. But this is where Louis starts to eat rats and other things he can find. Chickens. He's eating his chickens on his farm, which is freaking out all of the enslaved people that live on his plantation, because remember, he is a slave owner.
Yeah. This is even before they were Americans. Like this was like
Yeah.
still a French colony at that point. So
Right.
that was still very much going on.
Yeah, and in the book, they didn't even try to this with an accent or anything, but in the book, Louis is a family that comes from France. And
Right.
like, they're
Yeah.
straight from France, and so, but they didn't even try. Not only did they not try for any Cajun accents, there was no French accent whatsoever.
Right.
in
I
there.
think it was a good choice. I'd rather have
Yeah,
no
oh, yeah.
accent than
Oh,
bad
yeah.
accents.
Yeah, if your accent sucks, please don't try and do it. Like if you're asked to do Cockney for like a friend's podcast,
Well-
do your best, but like
They saw Tom Cruise's Far and Away and was like, you know what? Don't do an accent.
I love him in Far and Away.
I love the movie.
You stop it.
John, we just did Far and Away on Romance.
They've
in the
got so
Pod.
much land. They're just giving it away.
Just give it a twist.
But that was as good as his accent, John.
It's so good. It's so fantastic.
My running joke in that episode was it just sounds like Irish Simus, so he's like,
That's why they've
I
got the
love it.
green cone above their heads, because they're Irish.
Yeah.
But this is also where Lestat's like, if you want to eat rats, you can. Here's an animatronic rat that
Yeah.
now you have rat wine.
I do love how he like drains it and he like shakes the last bit out of it, and then you hear like a bloop when it comes out.
Yeah.
It's like a Capri Sun into a glass.
It
He
is.
should have
Yeah.
slapped it like a ketchup bottle. That would have been extra fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we cut to them hunting in society, which has got to be the most dangerous place to hunt as a vampire, because there's only so many society people.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think, because Lestat kills like 3 people a night and starts with like lower class people and
Yes.
then moves to high society people. Because if you kill 3 people from high society every night of the year, that's like over 1,000 people.
3 people a night in general is a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
No, I
people.
know,
It's
that's
a
like,
lot.
It's almost 1,100 people. Like that's a shitload of people.
Local news would be like, Jack the Ripper is here. Like that's
Yes.
Jack the Ripper killed 8 people.
I know.
Like a night or
No.
I
In
know.
total.
I know.
Now, I will say that, like, they kind of address this later where they talk about them when Claudia and Louis are on the boat, and they're like, a strange plague kept killing people. And so, like, I think maybe they're explaining some of that away with, like, people die all the time of all kinds of things.
Yeah, it was 1971 New Orleans, so like there probably wasn't a lot of great health care, and like if you
Right.
fell on a stick wrong, you might die.
1791?
What did I say?
1971.
That's what it's like to be super dyslexic, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, 1791. Sorry.
It'd be wild to walk into Studio 56 and have them be like, in the first aid kit, we've got leeches, watch your humors.
54. Studio 54.
Yeah, it's
54.
We're all
Oh my
messing
God.
up.
What's wrong with y'all today?
Studio 56 was 2 doors down from 54. It wasn't as famous, but like B-listers of the time hung out there.
It's the urgent care, 2 doors down. If you OD, we could bleed you, leeches, crystals. Anyway, so they're hunting in high society. And this is where he tries to present the idea of killing somebody who's not a good person.
Yeah.
And he introduces the telepathy section.
Yes, he
Yes,
does.
the telepathy as well.
Like Tom Cruise setting up the premise, I think, of what would be a really cool vampire / like Dexter TV show would be great. Where it's like every episode he's got to feed and we got to murder someone who's bad. I would love
It's
that.
basically Blade.
You know what? Now that I hear it out loud, it is exactly Blade. So yeah, that is the better version of it. Yes.
Well, only kills vampires, but hunting serial killers. I get it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, stuff like that would be fun.
My girlfriend and I, we've talked about this a lot where, because you do.
Absolutely, you do.
And we're of the mind between like Lestat and Louis, we're more of a Lestat because like you could get over the whole killing thing because you could specifically target just the worst people in the world. And there's so many terrible people in the world. Like I live in Texas, I live in the capital of Texas. There's a building down here ways that there's a lot of people.
Greg Abbott, step one.
Yeah. So it's like, not that I'd want to kill anybody, but if that was your way of living and that's what you do, it's like there's ways to, be not feel so bad. It's basically like what the Punisher does. He only kills the people who are bad.
Yeah, and he doesn't even use what he kills. Like,
no.
I would say a vampire is way more ethical than the Punisher is.
Yeah.
Yeah, product killers, not process killers.
I just loved watching Mikey process what I was saying and immediately get mad.
This extreme form of moralistic. That's fine. We'll just we'll just move on.
Wouldn't it be fun to watch Greg Abbott try to wheel away from a vampire?
I mean, absolutely. But I'm just thinking more. John hasn't been here for other episodes, but Mikey and myself have frequently argued for the fact that if you want to be a true environmentalist, you got to start eating people.
Yeah.
Hey, Paige, I don't think. Wait, John, you're on board for that? Hang on. Hang on.
We have to eat 2 billion people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should kill all these people. Everyone has a right to life. All life is precious. Everything.
Absolutely.
But if we're just talking on like an agnostic like conversation of like, what is an ongoing issue with our environmental effects on this planet, and that is its overpopulation and that kind of thing.
See?
And so. And often in nature, the way that nature deals with this is that it's culling of the herd. It's a predator and prey balance. And we don't have that with humans. And I'm not saying we should.
We don't have a natural predator.
We should have a new one.
Yeah, until the aliens get here, we got to start eating people.
So what I hear you saying is that humans are a cancer and vampires are the cure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like what Thanos did,
Yeah,
I'm not saying Thanos was right, but he was going in the correct direction.
Yeah,
Whales in New York Harbor, Todd. Think about it.
Wow.
Cannibalism can get us there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
He teaches him telepathy and he hunts high
he
society
teaches him
people.
telepathy, but he can't kill her, ends up killing the dogs instead. But then, of course, people notice. Like, she screams, it's like a whole thing, and that's why Lestat has to go snap her neck.
I think you mean they find them in a poodle of blood.
God damn it, Mikey. This is why I love you.
Yeah. That's the only joke I wrote for this episode.
I actually saw you look down at your notes.
Yeah, you were
and then look back up midway through
script.
delivering that joke, and I was like, oh, I know we're in for something good.
It's not even a long joke. You didn't need to read it.
Yeah, I didn't want to mess it up,
Mikey, this is why you couldn't do stand.
Poodle of blood.
You got to be up there for minimum 5 minutes, but like maximum like an hour.
Look, I've heard this talk from a woman before.
God, an hour. We soar.
No, I got things to do.
Yeah.
What are we in space?
So we cut back to Louis' plantation where he is kept killing chickens and people have noticed. And Lestat is just killing his enslaved peoples.
Yeah.
With abandon, like doesn't care.
And they also point out that like people are starting to suspect things about them because they dine at empty tables. They never eat.
Yes.
They're never awake during the day. Anything like that. Because it's an entire like small people group that lives on that plantation, and they're gonna notice that when like the dude who used to be their boss isn't like, and the dude that they prepped food for and fed, like no longer participating in normal human functions ever since his mean boyfriend came.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and they did like a whole tray of crawfish for him, and he's just gonna like let it go to waste.
Yeah.
Like
you should.
No, crawfish. A good New Orleans crawfish boiled. That's good times. I want to eat those little sea bugs, those little river bugs.
I'd love a good crawfish boil.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pick out the chunks of andouille if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still like, it's such a waste. It's a trough of
Yeah.
crawfish that falls over. It's so wasteful.
But back then they had a lot.
Well, they still have a lot.
They're still a lot. They're good.
They're still, we are the natural predator of crawfish.
although my again, I was watching this with my girlfriend, so excuse me if I refer to stuff I talked with her about a lot. But
No, it's all
she
good.
pointed out that there's a good chance that actually that was before that became part of New Orleans culture, and so it might not be historically accurate that in 1791 or 1971, whichever one it is, that the crawfish would have been a mainstay of New Orleans culinary delights. But anyways, love that they included it because it is now something we heavily associate with them Cajuns.
And it looks cool falling off that table.
Yeah. This is also something that I was questioning because if you watch the movie, in the opening credits, Thandie Newton gets a credits call out, and
Yes.
she's in it for just basically this scene. She has one other small scene.
Yeah.
She's in it for, she has dialogue, and she does have because she's like the indoor slave who is like, who served them food, and she's the one who's beseeching Louis to break up with his nasty boy. And I wonder, is it because she had enough lines was she credited, or was Thandie that established at that point? But that was a big deal that Thandie was in it because she seems so young in it. So I didn't know if she had an established career at that point.
No, her real, her true, if you want to call it a big break, is Mission Impossible 2, which was not out at this point. But I think this is where she and Tom Cruise meet for the first time.
Oh, interesting.
But SAG rules say that if you have a certain amount of lines, you get credit at a certain strata in the credits.
So that must have been what it was. Because it's not a huge cast at the beginning, and it has Antonio and Stephen Ray, who's Santiago later on, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's so Thandie being included, I was like, okay, but in all honesty, there's not a lot of other characters that have a lot of dialogue in the movie that aren't those characters. Right. It's a lot of humans that die in a scene, but the woman who gets her boob bit, she doesn't get crediting, but she's got lots of dialogues in the scene for quite a while. So I think Thandie must have been at least something established at that point.
She had been in 4 things before this. Her first credit was in 91 and this was in 94.
Interesting.
So she had been acting for a while, but she was still pretty new to it.
Still green.
Yeah, still green. Yeah, she's great in this though, and I'm sure she's great in everything, but she's really good in this. Although I feel bad for her because her expressing some kind of concern for this person who has enslaved her is very, very overly kind, and then for that overly kindness, he kills her.
Yeah.
So it's sort of terrible.
Anyway, so Thandie Newton is like, hey, you seem to be a vampire, and honestly, though, I think your boyfriend is not treating you kind, and this might be a toxic relationship.
And sometimes your friends aren't ready to hear that accurate information, and Brad obviously wasn't, so he murders her for her kindness here.
He murders her, and this is where he brings her body out and is just like, you're right, I'm a vampire, burn it down.
It's such a good little bit of a dramatic monologue as he's exiting, carrying her in his arms, and he's like, this place is damned, your master is the devil.
I do love that he frees them all here. Apparently, Mikey told me before we started that he actually in the book murders all of them, which is terrible.
Yeah, him and Lestat, they're like, well, we can't let anybody know.
Yeah.
That's terrible. But I do love in the movie, it is played like he just yes-ands the fuck out of the people coming to burn down his house. And I'm here for that level of improv commitment.
Yes.
There is so much fire in this movie.
Yes.
Lots of fire.
Yeah, Louis is a successful arsonist for sure. Because he burns 4 houses down.
Yeah, and it's a lot of Brad Pitt, clearly in the stunt room, surrounded by fire. And it's it stood out to me this watching where he's just the man spent a lot of time with fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why he's so hot.
He burns down all of New Orleans, burns down all of Paris.
Yeah, Paris is Burning is not named after the famous drag ball. It's actually just named after this movie.
Yeah. I mean, he set that theater on fire. That ain't going to go out.
No.
That's going to spread.
Well, okay. He also accidentally finds out that's how you kill Lestat. So he's like, well, I guess I got to keep burning everything.
Yeah.
But then we find out he didn't kill Lestat. So are those other vampires that were just on fire dead?
Well, he did decapitate them.
Well, the ones that he decapitated, of course, they're dead.
Now, it's been 15 years since I've read any of these books, but I think in the books, like Lestat finally wakes up in 1920, but he like gets so sad that he gets murdered twice that he's like, I'm just gonna lay in the mud and bury myself in the mud and like eat worms and like
I've been there.
just be sad for 100 years in the ground. I think that's what happens.
I heard that Louis was actually in Paris on April 15th, 2019 when the Notre Dame fire happened. So like,
We can see you reading the Wikipedia page.
I was.
Todd, pull up other famous fires of Europe.
All right. Triangle, waist shirt, fire. I was like typing this into Google.
He was in Australia in 2020, right before the pandemic.
He was in New York, 1911. All right, we can move on past this a bit.
He was at our wedding in 2019
Because
in
it was
Central
fire?
California. No, also there was a fire the day of our wedding and a bunch of people had trouble getting there.
Hell yeah, there was. I saw you in that dress.
Thank you. Anyway, so back to this movie.
Yeah.
He burns down the plantation and they end up in a basement. And Lestat's like, gross, you burned all our cool stuff.
Like they're like in a cemetery, aren't
Yeah,
they?
it is a cemetery.
Yeah, cemetery.
In my mind, it was just the cemetery he turned him at, right?
I think it
because
is.
it's there that he's like, hey, let's just go to New Orleans. Like, I got a bunch of
Yeah.
shit in New Orleans. We'll be good there.
He turns him in his family's cemetery because I
Yeah.
noticed in this last viewing that if you look at the gravestones, you see his family name.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And so if they had burned the house down, they would have probably hidden in his little family cemetery.
Yeah, but all that really happens there is Lestat's like, fuck you, you're an idiot. Let's go to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then cut to New Orleans. Yeah.
Well, and vampires are notorious moochers, where
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the main reason he turned to Louis and was hanging with Louis is because Louis is rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he moves in with him.
Yeah.
Well, and their emotional connection, quote unquote.
Just two bros
Yeah.
living together.
Doing bro stuff.
Raising their daughter, enjoying their fine collection of fancy scarves, and
I would be so pissed if I had to sit at a dining room table every night to not eat anything. I was like, why don't you guys just skip this part of your routine?
I know. Why even keep up this charade?
Yeah.
he's still running his plantation at that point, so they're trying to keep up appearances. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, they go to New Orleans, and this is where we cut to their apartment, and Lestat has very stealthily just like killed a girl in front of that other girl, and then he goes and bites that lady's boob.
Yeah, he's like, your head has no friend for wine. And like sort of covers her dead body, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
While
yeah.
he's
like,
talking to
she's
the girl. Yeah.
passed out, that
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of thing. And the girl that he's talking to it seems to be quite inebriated and a bit silly in the mood. But yeah, this scene is, I think, the most horrifying of the scene.
It
Yes.
is, man. Like, Lestat is fully, like, torturing that woman to try and force Brad Pitt's hand in killing her, right?
Yeah, this is Orca playing with a seal,
Yeah.
flipping
Yes.
it around.
Yeah.
Except it's in an apartment in New Orleans.
Right.
Well, and I think it backfires, like, because he's trying to convince Louis, but really this is just displaying the true horror
Yeah.
of what Lestat is and does.
Yeah.
And I think for Louis, it's just even more repulsive.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he doesn't give in. He does not kill her.
He doesn't kill her. I mean, Lestat does. I mean,
Yeah.
she's dead anyway, but this prompts him to go out into the streets, and this is where he finds Claudia, or
Yeah.
rather, he goes to the plague section of town, and Claudia is holding on to what we can clearly see is her very, very dead mother.
She's very dead.
Like, weeks dead.
Not a little bit.
Yeah.
super dead.
You guys are calling out in the book that Claudia's 5.
Yes.
Which makes a lot more sense in the ways that they were trying to convince us of certain elements of Claudia's character in the movie, where
Right.
she's clearly like a 9-10-year-old in the movie, but they're trying to convince us that she's too young to remember certain things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I have kids at 9 and 10, their brains are pretty established.
Yeah.
And they can remember stuff like that. As well as in watching this last time, we called it out that like, she's old enough to like, because she's like, wake up, mama. Can you wake up,
Yeah.
mama? It's like, no, that kid is not that young to realize that this very decayed corpse
He is
is
very
gone.
dead.
Well, her mom was never a looker.
That's why she has no eyes.
That's what we don't see the before. We don't see the
yeah,
before.
yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Honestly, this was a step up from her normal day to day.
Oh.
Yeah. But she also says that Pa left us and didn't come back. So
Yeah.
I don't know if her dad is dead because it is plague.
Again, another column in the evidence of my theory.
What's your theory?
Mom was not a looker.
Oh, no.
I thought he was going to be like, the dad left to go get cigarettes.
Yeah,
right?
the dad
Yeah.
did live. He's like, I have to go get tobacco for my pipe or whatever.
Yeah. But Louis kind of hugs her and bites her. I think his intention being to put her out of her misery without her knowing.
Mercy killing would be another way to go if you had to kill people.
Yeah.
Yes, and I do think that's what, in his mind, he's doing here, right? Because she is clearly sick with the plague, too. Like,
Well,
Yes.
yeah, and she's living in the plague part of town and has been clearly hanging out with a dead plagued corpse for several days.
Yes.
And I read it as Louis he was also at a point of like really needing to feed at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's why he bit into her but then still was able to,
Justify
I guess he
it,
wasn't able to pull away. It was that Lestat comes in and shames him into breaking it off.
yeah.
Yes, because Lestat comes in and dances with her mom's dead
so good.
body.
It's my
So good.
favorite Lestat scene. Yeah.
It is unhinged, and I loved it. Like, this is the most he Nicolas Cages in this movie, and I wanted more of this from him.
I mean, I feel like that body would have had a little more rigor mortis, and it doesn't, and
He's
that's
also
a little
very
upsetting.
strong.
That's true. He's super strong. And so fast. Say it, vampire.
So rigor mortis disappears. I just looked this up. 36 hours after death. So if she had been there for like 5 days, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be rigor mortis-y.
No more fixed lividity. Thank you.
That body was more than 3 days old.
Yeah, it definitely was.
The body was like 3 years old.
Yeah. Because her mouth was like wasted away a bit. Like
Yeah.
you saw the
Yes.
teeth. Yeah.
This is just Stan Winston's department like overdoing it a little bit, where they're like,
Yeah.
hey, we don't have another alien movie to work on right now, so we can only do this.
It's great. Haven't seen a dead body look that good since
Whoa. Phrasing.
I was gonna say Daniel Radcliffe's dead body double in Swiss Army Man.
Yes.
Such a good movie.
So Louis runs away because he's kind of horrified, and he goes into the sewer to eat rats, and Lestat comes and finds him and brings him back and is like, I have a present for you. I'm turning that girl into a vampire. Now you can't leave. And he literally says it
Yeah.
as Claudia wakes up. He's like, well, Louis was going to leave us, but now he's not going to.
Which her transformation scene, I love it. That's another good visual effect
is.
shot of like
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst, going from the disheveled hanging out with my plague mama.
Yeah, sort
look.
of sickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Into her curly haired doll appearance she has for the rest of the film.
Yeah, she definitely enters her doll era here. Yeah.
And looks like a doll, like the porcelain skin,
Yep.
the hair, all of it.
There is one shot they deprived me in this movie, which was when she does eventually realize that she can't change and she does the whole like hair clipping thing. I wanted a Santa Claus shot of
where it
her-
grows back.
I want the hair growing back, that kind of thing. I know that's like visual effects intensive.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite VFX shots of all time is that shot in Santa Claus, which is something to say. But that was
that
sad
came
that
out
they
the same year, by the way.
did it.
Yes, it did, 1994.
Oh, jeez.
So they could have done it.
They could have done it. They could have. I was like, Santa Claus, because I know I saw that in theaters, and I was like, I saw that as a kid. That had to have been around the same time. Yeah, same year.
That's funny.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But this then enters into kind of a montage and a series of scenes of them as kind of like a little happy family.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie yada yada's over a lot of this. But it's like
Yeah, she's a
50
serial
years.
killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then in the book, it goes into great detail of like her mind grows up, but her body,
Yes.
like, so she's like full old lady style vampire
Yeah.
internally.
Yes.
In the movie, it kind of makes her seem like she's still a child at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is a thing, and we'll get to it eventually in Twilight, Todd, but in Twilight, they make a whole point of like, you're not supposed to make kid vampires, and that's why the Volturi's after us.
Yep. They call that out in this movie though, that like they say that they're not allowed to turn when they meet Claudia in Paris, that they're not allowed to turn kids.
Yeah, Antonio Banderas says that to him. Yeah.
Yeah, because they can't survive on their own, which makes sense because like no one would believe a kid would be wandering around.
Yeah.
It ruins the secrecy.
Yeah.
Twilight gives the reason of they're uncontrollable.
Yeah.
That children cannot control their impulses. And so they will just kill and kill and kill and kill and kill until they get caught and killed.
You recite Twilight all you want. I'll go get my copies of the books out of my bookshelf over here because you know it. I've read all those books. I saw them midnight. They're terrible. I fully admit they're terrible. For some reason, I read them and I watched them.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Well, if we can't get Jackie Zabrowski for our she's been on our first 2 Twilights. So if we can't get her, we've got
I've been going through a very long process of forcing my best friend who had never read or seen any of the movies to watch them, and we've watched everything but the final 2 movies. It's been like we actually took it. We've been on a long break of watching them. It's been like 2-3 years because I think it was pre-pandemic we were doing this.
Oh geez.
And so I still need to have him watch the last 2 movies.
But he's read the last book already?
He's not read any of the books, so I just made him watch the movies. I didn't force
movies.
my friend to read Stephanie Meyer. No friend forces another friend to do that.
You're a good friend. But yeah, that last one, we'll eventually get Todd there. He's never read or watched them.
No.
And so he's just gaining tidbits, and we were trying to explain the concept of imprinting on one of those episodes.
Not a good concept.
Oh no, I correctly guessed it.
He guessed it. He was like, does the wolf fall in love with the baby? And we were like,
Yeah.
The one good thing that those movies gave us was a Michael Sheen who is having the time of his life.
Yes.
That is all. I'm all for that. Just to see that man read the room and realize what project he's attached to and just go, I'm going to have fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take my paycheck and dance to the bank.
He is the best part.
I can't
It's
wait
so
to get
good.
to his movies. I mean, we've seen him in the second movie a little bit, but he
And he
hasn't
comes
gone
back.
fully unhinged yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
But even in the first movie, when they the first movie he's in, they introduce him and you're like, what's he doing? What are these choices?
Anyway, so they are a family for like 50 years.
Yeah.
Lestat teaches her to become a serial killer. The 2 of them kill whole families.
Yeah.
And nobody cares. And then she suddenly starts to get to a point where she's like, internally, I'm an adult, but I'm in a child body, and I'm conflicted about that.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very angry.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, God, that would be devastating. And she sees an adult woman as they are out and is like, I want to be her. And this is the second time that they're like, she's pure Creole. And it's like, that's a white lady. What are we doing here? Kind of like when Brad Pitt's like, I'm Creole. And you're like, the fuck you are. Like, what? But she ends up killing that woman, we will find out, and hides her amongst all her dolls.
Yeah.
Which that was one of Anne Rice's complaints. She loved the movie, but she has like a few like criticisms that she wrote out in this like this little
2-page ad that she took out. Yeah.
And one of them is she's like, they have heightened senses. How did they not smell a
that
very
dead body?
decayed body? More decayed than Kirsten Dunst's mom, in the movie. Just hanging out in her bed.
And newly decaying too. Like not like a skeleton. Yeah.
I don't actually have a sense of smell. It's a sense I'm missing because of a genetic defect I have. But I got to imagine if you have a dead body in your house, you're going to be able to tell even as a human.
Oh, yeah. I used to work in retail and we would get rats, and one dead rat is enough to clear a store.
That's crazy.
So like imagine a human dead body.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
After a couple of days, it's pretty bad.
Oh, that's right. Mikey, you've seen dead bodies.
Yeah.
I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, the first day's not so bad, I guess. It seems like they don't smell, but like after a couple of days, it's bad. And it's like a very unique smell. That's also very bad.
And it like attaches itself to your clothes.
Oh, the smell does. I thought the
Yeah.
dead
Oh,
body.
yeah. Not the dead body. No, the smell of the dead body.
Yeah.
Mikey, I don't know if you want to explain to John why you encounter
I'm
dead
going to assume
bodies.
it's a job thing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I'm in charge of a program where we put counselors in police cars to like answer mental health calls, but we also go on other calls too sometimes.
Yeah.
So
That's what I figured it was in that realm.
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys were being very nonchalant about it, so I went with it.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
I thought I was like, to anyone who doesn't know, this is going to sound
Well,
crazy.
and then when I made the program or whatever, I was not anticipating seeing a lot of bodies at all. And I was like, oh, that's a dead body. Okay, I guess this is like a thing now. I got to like deal with it.
That's wild. Well, to speak about this lady that she finds and that scene of her seeing her through the door and being like hypnotized by this woman's adult body. This movie obviously is a bit heavy in the female nudity side, and I have to stress in the AMC series you get lots of boy butt, you get lots of boy nudity and that kind of thing. I love it. They're also hot men, so it's good times. I'm just saying you get to eat later on. Okay, we get to eat.
Hell yeah.
Okay,
I'll fill my Bridgerton hole until Queen Charlotte comes out. It'll be great.
I don't like Bridgerton hole. I don't like that combination of those
I'm
two
definitely
words.
not going to ask where that is.
Is that where you pee from?
Anyway, so she gets real upset. This is where she cuts her hair and it grows back, of course. The Santa Claus moment that we could have had, but don't.
We could have had. But she still comes out. This is the scene that they also showed. Again, my brain's wrapped on this. This is the scene they used for the Oscars, was her coming out and screaming, "Who did it? Who did it?" Because it's her finally piecing together. Someone turned her and did it at this time where she is stuck as a 10-year-old for forever, and she is upset. Great performance by little baby Kirsten.
So good. And she ends up kind of chasing Louis down. Louis takes her to the house where he found her, and she remembers and is like, "You both did it.
Yeah.
It's both of your fault."
Yeah. It takes two dads.
He does own up to it, though. He's like, yeah, I killed you, and then he turned you. Yeah.
Yeah. We cut back to the house where she has forgiven him. She's like, we have to leave him. And I think he's like, he'll never let us go. And she's like, oh, really? I think he thought she was going to find a way for them to escape.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, because at no point does it seem like when they reveal the plot and she enacts her thing on Lestat, that Louis doesn't seem like he's like, I didn't know you were going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he walks into the room. He's like, oh, no, I went for a walk to monologue, and then I came back to this.
I was off on my nightly brooding, and I come back.
Yeah. I was just walking for 4 years, and you planned all this?
She does plan quite a bit, though, because she kills 2 boys on, what was it? Laudanum. That's what it is.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's like morphine.
Yeah. And then like stashes them in their front entryway and then gives them as a peace offering to Lestat, who is now drinking dead blood, and like it puts the kryptonite on him, as we called it earlier.
No, it's the laudanum. He's like, oh, did you give me, he knows that there was drugs in the blood.
He thought it was absinthe.
Yeah.
Well, he thought it was absinthe, but it's also, he drinks dead blood.
Yeah, it's that they've been dead for a while.
Because the boys are dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And laudanum does make your blood warm. That's why it feels like you pee your pants, which oddly came up, I think, on the last episode.
It did. You brought it up.
Morphine makes you feel like you pee your pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, he drinks dead blood, and then she slits his throat.
Yeah.
But it is one of the more gory moments of the movie.
It is. And it looks great.
Yeah.
And then we get Puppet Tom.
Because he does start to look like an old elf.
Yeah.
I don't think they needed to have a animatronic be the Tom Cruise that's on the floor dying, but I love it. I love a good practical effects moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Muppets fan. I'm a Creature Workshop fan.
Yeah.
Like,
how do you feel about The Thing?
oh, I just watched The Thing for the first time last year.
It's so
hell
good.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and I watched it, and that's a Carpenter film, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, there's no way my parents, my father, who's a pastor, was going to show me John Carpenter films. The Thing was, I didn't absolutely adore it, but in my opinion, the best of Carpenter so far, and great Creature Workshop work. So yeah, it's a great example of like good practical effect uses. And just bizarre visuals.
Yeah.
I love this like dead Tom Cruise moment, just trying to reach out there on the floor, and yeah, his weird old elf mouth dying with blood in it.
The super like pronounced cheekbones and sunken cheeks. Like it
Very
does
fey.
look great. Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
I get why they did it, because to do that would have been much less cost effective with visual effects. So that's why practical effect was still being used, because visual effects were still, we hadn't learned to enslave entire buildings of VFX artists with low wages in order to accomplish our films. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is also, she quotes, or misquotes, I should say, Shakespeare. In this scene, the good night, sweet prince, may flights of devils bring you to your rest instead of flights of angels. Very fun.
The dialogue in this film is very literary. It's very floral.
Yeah.
Yes. But honestly, it just makes it more fun because they're just like high and fancy.
It's very dramatic, and I love it.
It is.
So they dump him into the swamp to let the gators deal with him. And they start making plans to go to the New World. But the night that they're about to leave, they notice that they forgot to free the birds. And as they are about to do so, the doorbell rings. There's no one there. But who should be in the house? Swamp Lestat.
Ding dong dastardly.
Yes.
I love that scene. I love how they shot the curtains covering Lestat so you can't see him, and he's playing the harpsichord, and it's so just peak villain moment. I adore it.
Yeah.
And we find out that he fucking killed that alligator, man.
Oh, he did.
Like, sucks his blood, snakes, toads, all the putrid life of the Mississippi, and is slowly starting to heal. But this is where we first get introduced to the idea that like he can be very, very close to death and come back as long as he has things that he can eat.
Yeah.
And it goes way more in depth to all that stuff in the book, which is cool. But like basically after he gets brokenhearted, he just like buries himself in a cemetery in Louisiana and just like stays there for a while.
Yeah.
Until he's awoken by the dulcet tones of nu metal. Yes, as we found out in the next film.
He's like, is that George Michael's Faith done badly?
I think I need to watch Queen of the Damned with my girlfriend now.
You absolutely do, John.
There's a blood jacuzzi, John. So Louis throws an oil lamp onto the carpet, basically lighting this house on fire, and they make a run for it.
At Lestat's feet, lighting him
Yes.
on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they literally run to the dock. And because, fire travels to other structures that are close by, like the whole town catches on fire more or less, and they barely make it to the boat before the boat's just like, oh, the town's on fire? Let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's get
so
outta
like
here,
they
yeah.
do make it to the boat, but it's like already leaving.
There's a great shot where Lestat is ablaze and running around the house catching on fire, and he does the wall crawl thing, and they did great sound work.
Yeah.
And it's just like this monstrous, non-human roar.
Yeah.
It is really good.
It's almost a throwaway shot, but it adds so much to that moment to see him doing the crawling thing. Again, movie was masterfully made. So much intent, so much time put into this. Hence why one of the rare horror vampire movies that ever get is in the Oscar nomination category of stuff, because so good.
Yeah, because Breaking Dawn got robbed. No, it did not. So they end up on the boat, blessedly free of rats because they're eating them, but then the passengers succumb to plague.
Yeah.
But they make it to the Mediterranean, and we get a montage of them going around Europe and finding no vampires.
Yeah.
It's a cool interpretation of how to express traversal of time and place, where it's Claudia drawing. And as she moves her drawings around, it's great, a tracking shot that goes from them in Europe to Claudia's drawings changing, and you're seeing landmarks from Europe, and then it transitions into Christian Slater's apartment. It was a really great shot.
It is very, very cool. And it's like effects that we're used to seeing now, but this is probably the earliest movie that I've ever seen something like this. And it's so effectively done.
I love watching old movies like that because, you get that experience. And to speak of another vampire movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula is all practical effects. And if you go into the movie realizing everything you're seeing is practical effects, you will come out going how the hell did they do that? How did they do that?
Like that carriage chase at the end. You're just like, how the fuck?
Bonkers.
So they get to Paris. And this is where Louis is like, I always wanted to go to Paris because I was Creole. And you're like,
You've been telling us that this whole time, but no one believes you, Brad.
In your Brad Pitt, normal way of speaking.
Yeah. Buongiorno. Yeah.
Yeah. They sprinkle in some Cajun in there of every once in a while they're like ma chère and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's I think they forget and they're like, oh yeah, quick, say something.
Yeah. Quick, get your accent cassette tapes. So as they're living in Paris, and they're clearly living the high life, she's getting new dresses, they're attending parties, they're dancing. But who should find him on the streets but Santiago and Armand, Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
Who invites them to the Théâtre des Vampires, where he's like, bring the girl, no one will harm you, but remember my name. And then we have to sit through a couple plays that are not great.
I do like the way the vampires play it, though, because it is like they're just a theater group that specializes in vampire stories. And then they use the theater experience. And they do, I think, put on a play, but eventually they do bring out a victim and eat her in front of everybody. And the theater is just horrified, but also they're assuming it's a part of the show. So no one's trying to run away. They're not trying to help her. They're just oh, this is probably a bit gauche. I don't know if I love this part of the play while this woman's fully getting murdered on stage.
Which I don't know why they had to do it as part of the play. They have a whole underground thing where you just take people underground, they gone.
They have to have done it because they want to do it that way.
Yeah.
It is something they enjoy.
I read it as these are immortal beings that boredom is going to be a real problem.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
And clearly, Santiago's character alone, he's a jester.
Yeah.
He's a comedian. He even has that that I love the interaction with him and Brad in the tunnel where he's doing copycatting, and then the great gimbal shot where they get him, walking on the ceiling, very Fred Astaire.
Yeah, I love that.
That is the inspiration for that shot, was Fred Astaire specifically.
Yeah. Interview the Vampire did that so we could get Inception with Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing that in the hallway. But yeah, like even Stephen Ray, who played Santiago, he talks about how in order to prepare for the role, he was watching like tapes of like Comédie Française, which is like the type of theater that they were mimicking in that scene. And so I think it was like you're bored as a vampire and you want to like find new fun ways to like, you also have to be so secret. This is a way for like, again, this is like queer coding where you can't be open about the queerness of these characters or anything like that. So that's why like you can't say all the villains in Disney movies are a bunch of gays, but they are. Like
they do write them that way though.
I mean, Ursula's based off of a goddamn drag queen, and I've never watched the movie and been like, I think Jafar really wants to date that woman. It's like, no, these are a bunch of homosexuals.
I think maybe Jafar wants to date that bird.
Yeah, he just wants to live with this bird and be catty and sassy about stuff and drink wine and be in charge
and wear turbans and caftans, of course.
Yeah. And so like they have to be so secret. So like this is like, it's such a power play to literally in an audience, not even just open out in public, but an audience paid for them to do what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And they get to do it and they get to be dramatic about it. And again, the majority of these vampires are not reading as straight. And so of course they're gonna be theater kids that want to be on the stage.
And I do think he has a very menacing presence in this film. Like he's a good villain for Brad Pitt. I think him and Lestat, but they're so different.
Santiago is so like, which is impressive that his character is so comedic, but it's like the Joker in the Batman style.
That's what I was gonna say. He's like a Joker villain. But also, like, I would also, if you're making money and doing that and you're bored, I would not want to live in a crypt with like 20 other vampires in a basement.
Well, it's the catacombs. It's the Paris catacombs. Yeah.
I would like, I kind of like how they're doing it with like a room and like they're learning piano and doing some other like reading. Like, I think I would have done more of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to sleep underground in a catacomb, give me a room. I don't want to have to still sleep in a coffin,
Yeah, they all have that group room, and then Armand gets his room, I guess, is what it felt like.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could find an apartment in Paris, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I still think Armand gets off clean in this movie. I think he needs to be blamed for like that setup and like he's the manager.
I mean, he is the leader of that little coven of vampires. Yeah, he absolutely is responsible.
Well, he's like, I'm not really the leader, but I think he like turned all of them, but like didn't like them. Probably.
He is the oldest vampire, we find out in this section, right? So he definitely turned most of them, or at least was the genesis of all of that coven, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I am of the belief that he orchestrated the attack on Claudia to get her away from him so he could have Louis.
Yeah.
So like when Louis kind of blames him in the end, I think he's right.
Well, yeah, I think we get that not at the end, but at the end of their story together, like when he breaks up with Antonio Banderas, his current boyfriend at the time, like he does break up with him because he's like, I know that was your idea to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, you knew I would kill everyone else and you did not care. Like you sacrificed everybody to try and get that one guy.
I know we're like right there. I love when he goes full John Wick. I love it.
Yeah.
I wanted, honestly, more of it.
Yes. But at the theater, they watch as they kill a person and they're both like monstrous. This is why would you do this? This is gross. And so they kind of meet up with the vampires downstairs, which unfortunately Antonio Banderas has like a little snack child that he brings around with him just to kind of snack on, which is not great.
Like a familiar.
He's also the guy driving the getaway carriage as they escape together. Yeah.
Yeah. In my notes, I call him Little Snack for most of the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Little Snack. They explored that a little bit more in the TV series of like this concept of like, instead of having to cause dead bodies to appear constantly around you, which you guys have pointed out would start to be like difficult to just push under the rug after you've eaten so many, is like if you can have those who will, participate for you as a meal, that can be helpful. And I imagine, I don't know, I think there's so much interpretation of what you could say of like, where did this boy come from? I don't know if the books ever went, ever talk about.
Armand's got his own book, but
Yeah.
he's always been one of the most boring characters for me in the book, so I never read that book.
Interesting.
I don't know. But a familiar, definitely the easier route, I would think.
Yeah.
It's also smart for, like, again, this is why vampires are familiars, because they can care for them during the day as well. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
that makes sense. But yeah, he has a little snack. He has a snack.
And sometimes they can wake up and be inside during the day, and sometimes they don't. Vampire rules get a little loose with that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, Brad's awake when he sets the whole thing on fire, and it's
Right.
like it's daytime.
He's like, he had to go to the gas station, buy 400 gallons of gas, and bring it over there, or whale oil, or whatever the hell they're
Whatever
using.
that
I think
weird,
it's wine. I think they're casks of
Yeah,
wine.
it was very red and maroonish, and so I didn't know what it was. But yeah,
But he doesn't do that until after they kidnap Kirsten Dunst and kill her.
Well, it's because they meet her during this time and are like, you're not supposed to have one of those, and that's part of why they take her.
and Santiago is using another great villain moment is where we're hearing Brad's narration,
Like his VO.
yeah, and Santiago hears it, and it's like that was a great just like pause where you're like, hold up.
And I think he knows in that moment that they murdered Lestat, and that's why he says the only one like crime amongst vampires is to kill one of us.
Right.
He doesn't then accuse them of doing that, but I think in his mind he already heard them and knows that they did.
Yeah, he's probably reticent at immediately acting upon it, considering Armand likes him.
Yeah.
Well, and we do get the first scene between Brad Pitt and Armand where Armand is basically like, ditch Claudia, come with me. I'm your new
I got all
boyfriend."
these little secrets I could tell you.
Yeah.
Yes. And Armand makes it seem like it was okay that they killed Lestat because he's like, I knew him well enough not to mourn his passing.
Yeah.
Well, Lestat's no one likes Lestat in the no vampires like Lestat. He's kind of a diva.
Yeah. Well, and while this is happening, Claudia goes out and finds a woman who works in a doll store. And this woman has lost her daughter. And so Claudia's like, if we make her a vampire, she could be my mother. I could be her daughter.
Everyone wins.
Everyone wins. We leave. You stay with your new boyfriend.
It's because she can tell she's got abandonment issues, and she can tell that Louis is feeling this Armand thing.
Yeah.
And she also reads the room that like she's like, I am in fact while we refer to each other as beloved and whatever, like father, daughter, whatever, sister, brother, that kind of thing. She is stuck in this body, and it's clearly Louis wants a boyfriend. Claudia can never be the boyfriend that he wants, and so she can feel that. And I mean, come on, anybody who goes and sees that Antonio Banderas is mooching on your significant other, you're like, things are gonna go bad.
Yeah, Mr. Banderas is definitely a Mr. Steal Your Vamp.
Yeah.
But also, I get it.
So she turns this woman, or he gets Louis to turn the woman, but in the book, this all takes a while, and they live with this woman all together for a year or so or more.
Oh, wow.
That's so
Okay.
much better than how it's played in the movie, because I feel so bad for this woman.
Oh, I know. She immediately gets turned, and then that night she gets murdered. Or I guess that
Yes.
dawn, I should say.
That
But
dawn, yeah. No, I do remember in the book that they were together for a while, and she travels with them, and she gets annoying. Where Louis annoyed with her.
Well, I that's in the book. I also know Louis spends decades with Armand.
Yeah.
Him and Armand are boyfriends for quite a while. But they almost immediately break it off in the movie, and he leaves him. But yeah, this poor woman is signing up to have her forever doll, and she doesn't pan out for her.
No.
Yep, doesn't pan out because the theater vampires come and kidnap them. They immediately they brick Louis into a wall in a coffin. They throw Claudia, and Madeleine is the new mom.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right.
Mom for a day.
I really do think being bricked up in a coffin and kept alive forever is by far the worst of those two punishments.
Yeah, well, because the other one, they are put in a sunroom.
Yeah.
Which this is why it also cracks me up on What We Do in the Shadows, where the vampire council has a sunroom that looks exactly like this, and it's how they punish people.
Yeah. It is the perfect punishment for a vampire. I mean,
Yes.
It's so frightening. That shot of looking up and just seeing that.
oh, the creeping dread of the sun is so scary. Yeah. And it's so sad because when they die, in each other's arms, you're just like, oh, that's so sad.
It's brutal. And so Armand comes and unbricks the wall and lets Brad Pitt out, but not in time to save Claudia, who is literally just like ash, like Pompeii.
Well, he's like, oh, I couldn't couldn't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't get there in time or whatever.
Whoops.
Wink.
Oops, wink. Yeah.
I think in the book, I don't think he has them kidnapped because I think Louis would have figured it out and been really mad at him.
If I remember in the book, she is careless and gets found out somehow.
Something like that. Yeah. Something happens where Armand's not like the villain. Armand's not the villain in the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Brad Pitt then shows up a couple days later and burns the entire shit down with wine, but then also has a scythe. And he looks exactly like the kid from Children of the Corn with that scythe.
It's awesome.
This is the coolest part of the movie.
It's the scythe that Santiago used in his in the play.
Yeah, I loved it though. Like he uses it too, man. He like decapitates a lady, cuts a dude in half.
Best moment from that scene where he is down in that catacombs and they're on fire and he's waiting out at their spawn point with his weapon, ready to spawn kill these
Just getting them
guys.
as they come towards the door.
Yeah. Is the one vampire that just launches out like springs were underneath his back.
Oh yes, that's awesome though, right?
It's
Like
so good.
And these people have not learned about stop, drop, and roll yet.
No. They just flail and wail around.
More air into this flame.
Yeah,
and you find out in the books, like the older you get, the more powerful you get, but also the more powerful
They say that in
vampire.
one line in the movie.
Okay. And then the more powerful a vampire turn you, the more powerful you start out with.
Interesting.
Lestat was like turned by like someone really powerful, so like Louis more powerful than the average.
okay,
Interesting.
That might have been retconned in the Vampire Lestat book, but like,
but still that would hold true. Sure.
yeah.
But they burned the shit down. His final, like, quick little battle with Santiago was cool as shit, too. Because it's like...
Very quick, but fun.
Yeah, it's like on the stage, and they, like, sort of run towards each other, and he's got the scythe.
Yeah, Santiago, like, it's very clunky...
Yeah.
90s visual effects, practical effects. They do
the vampires, like...
Flash run.
Yeah, like
the
flash run.
And the flash run's not very good in this movie.
It's not
like,
great.
Even at the top of the movie when Brad Pitt does it to get the light switch on.
Yeah.
It's, we've got a ways till we get to Smallville and it looks pretty cool.
But Brad Pitt, like, knows where he's going to go, so he, like, slashes there and cuts Santiago in half, and it's dope. It's so cool.
It's kind of a little bit of a Dragon Ball Z moment where they're all moving too fast.
Yes. Yeah. It was great.
So this is the crazy thing, is that he gets the scythe and does that cleave from the shoulder down to like his other rib section. So you got this weird cross section.
Yeah.
I literally just watched the movie yesterday, and was there a shot where the top part of the body was on the floor and Santiago was still moving a little bit, or did we never see that?
You see it on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, you see it on the floor. I don't think you see it
I don't know if
moving.
he's moving or not.
Because Stephen Ray talked about that they did a practical like setup of like his head being in like a puppeteer body, like he's under the floor and the cross section is above the floor and his head pokes through, so it looks like that's him. And he talks about how like he had to sit in that very uncomfortable practical setup for like an hour for them to get the shots they needed. But I was like, I don't think that made it into like the final cut, because I think you just see the body get cut and then that's it. They probably cut that for like ratings purposes, because like seeing that piece on the floor would have been much more graphic.
It would have been, yeah.
I mean, maybe it just didn't look good enough. But people being uncomfortable while they did visual effects is like this movie's jam. Like it happened to everybody.
You hear that in a lot of movies, and a part of me goes like, shut up, you take your millions of dollars and do it. But I have been on sets, I have been at night shoots, I have been doing like outdoor winter filming.
And how are you enjoying your millions of dollars?
Oh yeah. Can you see my lavish apartment? It gets you. It gets you bad.
Absolutely.
You start losing it, and I'm talking about like I've done like a week of night shoots. Brad Pitt talks about like 6 months of basically being nocturnal. Oof. And being in London, which probably also wasn't like the most comfortable thing to be at night, even though they were often in studio. So I want to tell them like, shut up. It's like Cummings, who was a Nightcrawler in the X-Men movies.
Alan Cumming, yeah.
Alan Cumming, he talks about how that makeup setup was just horrendous and he would never do that again.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like full body, like Rebecca Romaine, again, X-Men, like champion.
Yes.
Sat in that chair to be turned into that.
Mystique.
For like 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like people like her and like Jim Carrey for The Grinch. I'm like, you deserve an award for just like sitting through that.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt, like, even just the context and like the makeup for his face was probably the worst. Although they do talk about how I don't know why they did this. I'm like, there's got to be better ways to
this
get
is in my
the
fun
veins.
facts, but yes.
It's to get their veins painted on and emphasized correctly. They hung upside down for like 30 minutes before putting the makeup on. And I'm like,
so the blood would rush to their heads.
That
and they had to do it multiple
unnecessary.
times.
yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't photograph it the first time.
Right?
And then just like,
And then just match it every time.
Can't photograph vampires.
if that was the reason, that'd be so funny.
That's a good one. That was better than your poodle joke.
Oh, no.
Disagree.
Anyway, back to the movie because we're so close to the end.
We are so close.
So he kills them all, and then Armand pulls up with a little snack, and they drive away.
Little snack.
He drives up. It does when you talk about him being the driver for the thing. It really does sound like a street name from like Fast and Furious. Like, this is Little Snack. He's our driver.
Yeah. And he's family.
He used to work on car radios, and now he's going to hack the space shuttle.
Yep. He used to steal VCRs.
His name is Freddie. Freddie hors d'oeuvres.
Oh, Mikey.
Because he's a little snack, but he's French.
Yeah. No, I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could tell from how much Todd was laughing.
Yeah.
At Pierre a Tizer.
Ah, see, there you go.
There you go. Anyway, Lil Snack drives him off. And he and Armand have a conversation where Armand's like, I could teach you to not regret. He's like, oh, if that's the only thing you have to teach me, I'm out.
Yeah, because I don't want to not regret.
We're broken up now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you back your CDs. Yeah.
No.
I do love their dialogue in that little scene where they're walking through all those paintings, dressed impeccably. The costuming in the film, and their little outfits during that, they were cute.
Yeah.
I love that Armand is expressing that what entices him so much to Louis is that he is like a vampire that still has his humanity.
Yeah.
Like if we're following this line of like he orchestrated all these vampires dying, he clearly is bored of all of these vampires who are vampires. And Louis is the hot new thing, and he wants the hot new thing, and I think they have a great conversation about that as they're walking through it. I would have loved, like, again, the books, went into it more of like longer time with Armand, and Armand has a lot more story, and so I would have loved that from the film. But it's a nice goodbye moment.
It is.
And Louis makes it for the rest of the books, I think. Like, he's in Queen of the Damned and all sorts of stuff.
Really? So he
is, but he's not in the movie though.
No, he's not in the movie, but everybody loves him. Louis and I think Lestat's mom become really close friends too. Like, it's all
How
weird.
close?
Well, really close. They hold hands and go for monologues.
That's practically sex in this universe.
That's the only,
Yeah.
But that's his thing, is that he has his humanity still, or he
Yes.
has a lot of emotions.
Yeah. He still feels. He's not a true-on sociopath like a lot of the vampires are. Yeah.
Lestat's mom, I think, doesn't she lives like a wild person, like in the woods, like hunting wolves and
Like
stuff.
a feral person?
Yeah, kind of
Okay.
like that.
Cool.
Anyway, we cut through a montage of Louis being like, so I walked around for like, I don't know, like 200 more years.
I
Just
feel like he yada
wandering.
yadas till 1989. Although he talks about it like it was, and I think the 1920s when he saw the sunset again, and it was silver at first and then purple, and they show like Gone
Louis
with the
becomes
Wind.
a big movie fan.
And then he goes and sees like tequila sunrise and sees a better sunrise.
I like that Superman is in this movie.
I do
I
like
just
that
like that there's a
too.
shot of
Yeah.
Superman in this movie.
Flying backwards to turn the world back around.
Yeah. I do like the premise of vampires going to see movies with sunset in the title and only going to see it for like the sunrise or sunset part of it.
Yeah.
Like going to see Before Sunrise and being like, can we get to the sunrise?
Yeah.
See, now would be a good time to be a vampire. There's a lot of content to consume now.
Yeah. This really would be the golden age of being a vampire for sure.
Yeah. But as he's walking through New Orleans, he smells death and walks into this old abandoned house where Bat just like flies at him.
Yeah.
But it turns out that Lestat's been there eating hella rats.
Yeah, he's been eating the rats. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on an all rat diet.
What is because they never explain in the movie, but I think you guys kind of talked about it, that it's the idea is that he was so depressed.
Yeah.
He stayed buried or stayed in the coffin until like just now, or like a couple months before Louis finds.
Because it's a lot of time has passed since the fire where he would have been damaged. But I'm like, in that time he would have like healed and eaten and been fine. But we're cutting to like 1980, and he's not fully decayed as he was like with zombie Tom, but he's pretty bad. And I just never, this rewatching, I was like, why is he like that? Because I get it makes for a really nice dramatic moment of Louis and Lestat finally returning to each other, but I never fully read of like, why is he that way?
They can like hibernate.
Okay.
I bet his body is weak because it just came out of that hibernation. So he's like sort of starving, I guess.
Oh, and he like was so depressed he wasn't eating was part of it.
Yeah.
Been there. Everybody's been there a little
Same.
bit.
For 200 years.
Yeah. So Louis is like, glad you're back, but we're not going to hang out. I'm out. Bye. And we cut to him basically. He does, a helicopter flies over and he does have to tell Lestat about light bulbs.
Yeah, Lestat's scared.
Yes.
But why is that helicopter there? Like, what are they doing?
That also, I was like, why is that there?
That helicopter is 15 feet away from the window.
It is
so
outside
close.
the window.
It is clearly on a crane. Like, it is that close. And then it shines a light on these two dudes in an abandoned house that are dressed the way they're dressed.
Yeah.
And then flies the fuck away and does
nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Instead of like,
Crazy.
you're a person of interest. Like, no. It's just, yeah.
Just another day in New Orleans.
Yep.
So we cut to present day with Christian Slater, and Brad Pitt's just like, and that's the end. That brings us up to like now. And Christian Slater's like, what?
Your ending sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, your ending sucks. You should make me like you. And he's like, did you not fucking listen to the story I just told you about how lonely and sad this is?
And he's like, no, I fully have not.
I've just been sitting here letting the tape run.
In Christian Slater's defense, he heard a story of how Brad Pitt is the only sad vampire.
That is true. He's like, hey, I'm super sad about this, but everyone I met was super jazzed about it. Yeah.
I like the another one of the shots of the film that really stood out to me in my last rewatching was when Christian Slater fully misreads the room and Brad Pitt, is angry at him. He has that, lifts him up to the ceiling thing.
Yeah.
And the top down shot of Brad Pitt looking up at Christian is the most ferocious Brad looks in the entire film.
Yeah.
It's like the only time Louis looks scary.
Yeah.
Where he is like, he's actually like a feral vampire at that point. And I love that they saved that for the end to really emphasize how upset Louis would be at having told his tragic story to this moronic journalist who at the end is like, so we're supposed to be boyfriends now. That's what I heard from this story is you want a new boyfriend.
And he's like,
Brad's
no!
like, no.
We're just friends, okay?
Yeah. I will eat you, you idiot.
No quesadilla for you.
No. But so Christian Slater runs out of the house. Brad Pitt disappears. He gets in his very fancy convertible and drives away across the Bay Bridge. And who should pop up out of the back seat but Lestat?
And he has put in the tape that he recorded. So we're listening to Louis talk about
the beginning of the movie,
story.
yeah.
So Lestat would have the context of that's Louis. And I love that like he does bite Christian Slater and then start driving the car and he pulls his puffy sleeves out.
The
and
little,
it's like,
the little lace being pulled
and
out.
he's like, I've been listening to that guy bitch and whine for like 200 years.
Oh, so funny.
I love that part. Yeah. And then he says to him what he says to Brad Pitt with the whole, I'm going to give you the choice I didn't get, which I think is a cool part of Lestat's sort of story.
Except that the choice is death or vampire.
Right. I mean, but he is going to kill you no matter what. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I just like that that's part of his story.
yeah, and you got to remember, Lestat's got the telepathy too.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So he knows that Christian's character, wants it and that kind of thing. And so that's what, entices Lestat. But yeah.
I mean, it's 90s Tom Cruise. Who didn't want it?
He wanted it. What was he wearing? He looked like he wanted to be a vampire.
Did you see Tom Cruise's puffy sleeves? Come on.
That
How could
car
you
was
say no?
topless.
yeah.
The car was topless?
Oh, no.
It is a great final scene that they added into the movie. That's not, that has nothing to do with like the original stories of stuff. And I do love that. I think it's a great moment that emphasizes why, while Anne Rice was not excited about Tom Cruise at first being cast, once she saw the movie, she was like, he was Lestat.
Yeah.
That is my Lestat.
She liked him. Yeah.
She liked him so much.
I mean, he is amazing.
And that's the movie.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what'd you guys think about Interview with the Vampire?
I think it holds up.
yeah.
Same.
100%.
Yeah. I saw it a few times in high school. I probably saw it once between then and now. I was honestly very happy to see how well I thought it held up. And I was sort of mad that I just did not get the gay coding of this whole movie the first few times I watched it. Like, I enjoyed it way more because of that this time. I was like, shit, I love this.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely rewatch this. Like, Natalie loves this movie too, so there's no way we're not going to watch this movie together again.
The movie, I remember the first time I watched it, and I remember the opening stuff was not getting me. I wasn't sold on this whole Christian Slater thing at first. For some reason, the first shot of Brad Pitt's makeup turned me off a little bit when he turns the light on, because it's just that nasty, like, you know, fluorescent bulbs lighting up his white makeup. And so I remember, like, in the first 10 minutes of the movie going like, what am I getting in here? But the movie immediately grabs you.
Yeah.
And it's a 2 hour plus movie.
Yeah, it's just over 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. But it's got a great structuring. It's got great pacing. You got like 3 acts that really like build up and pay off each time.
Yeah.
And even though there's so much melodrama in the script and it's very over the top, there's moments of camp.
I love it. I love campy shit though. It's so fun.
But it never winks at you and
Right.
it's like no, like just play along with this. It never does that. It takes itself like pretty seriously and keeps going with it and really encapsulates like so much of its theme so perfectly, like the codependency, the loneliness, the otherness, and it just keeps that through line all the way through. And there's not a bad performance in the entire film.
No.
Everyone is selling it. Even the lady who gets her boob bit.
Yeah, even the bit parts, they're nailed. Everyone
Literally
does a
the
great
bit
job.
parts.
I didn't realize I said a joke when I said that joke. But yeah,
It does make me sad. Granted, I haven't watched Queen of the Damned yet. That the movie's set up at the very end, a non-canonical like sequel kind of setup, like where there could have been another Lestat movie. And I remember when I
Christian
watched
Slater
it,
Buddy Vamp movie.
Yeah.
I'd have been here for that.
I'm so sad it didn't happen, and I'm sure like it just got lost in like the contract agreements and scheduling kind of stuff, because the movie made money. The movie did
Yeah,
well.
we're gonna talk about that. Yeah.
Oscar nominations, but it makes me sad. What could have been?
The next book is Lestat's story, so he could have told
Yeah.
his story to Christian
That
Slater
would
and
have
it
been
been a
so
perfect
good.
frame.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that would have been so good.
Oh yeah, and they would have just used the interview style as like the narrative device. It could have been an interview with Lestat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is basically his book.
I got your
Yeah.
first 30 pages right here. Let's do that.
Well, if you remember from when we did Queen of the Damned, there was a lot of studio infighting regarding the second movie. And when they chose to combine the book Queen of the Damned with the movie The Vampire Lestat, or with the book Vampire Lestat, they kind of like combined 2 books. And that's how we get this weird hybrid. And that's part of why Anne Rice hated it. And we'll talk about it a little bit in fun facts here. But like, she went on record as saying like, you had the blueprint for 2 more movies and you just got greedy.
That must,
Yeah.
I never even thought about how frustrating that must be, because even Interview with the Vampire took about 18 years for production to finally get and do it. So this woman's waiting, around and being toyed around with for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And then she gets Interview with the Vampire. It's a masterpiece. She loves it. You said it. Pulls out a 2-page ad to talk about how good it is. And then the follow-up is Queen of the Damned.
Oh, and it's, dude, when you see Queen of the Damned,
I've seen 20 minutes. I know what I'm getting into.
it's, and again, that's the best 20 minutes. It's astonishingly terrible.
It's a terrible, perfect movie.
Yeah.
Well, it changes a lot from the book too.
Well, of course, because the book was written at a time where if they had made it at around the same time they actually wrote the book, or even at the time this movie came out, Interview came out, the music would have been like way better in it
Yeah.
because it wouldn't have been that new metal shit.
Yeah,
But Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
So many fun facts. This is obviously an extremely famous movie with tons of fun facts. There's no way we could get through every fun fact in time. So I've just pulled out some interesting ones and we will go through them.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So Christian Slater was given this role upon the death of River Phoenix. Originally, River Phoenix was supposed to play his role. Damn. And because of that, Christian Slater donated his salary from the movie to River Phoenix's favorite charities.
Oh, that's amazing. River Phoenix would have been amazing in this movie.
That would have been
I
amazing.
think Christian Slater does a great job, but that's so sweet of him to do that for. I'm assuming they were friends, right?
They were friends. They were very close friends, but also River had died literally months before production. Like, this would have been one of his next films. So, yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of other people who were originally cast, Daniel Day-Lewis was originally cast as Lestat, but dropped dropped out weeks before production, which caused delays. It came down after him to Tom Cruise and Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp ends up turning it down.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I think all three of those people, obviously we get Tom Cruise and he's great, but I think the other two would have been amazing too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Daniel Day-Lewis and Tom Cruise, I think, would be the better choice.
Me too.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to a Daniel Day-Lewis vampire movie.
Me
I know
either.
we've passed that time.
Yeah, I think Johnny Depp would have hammed it up a little bit. I think we got a good one with Tom Cruise. I would have also taken a Daniel Day-Lewis, but also Anne Rice met with Tom Hanks for the part of Lestat after seeing his performance in Philadelphia, and he turned it down to star in Forrest Gump instead.
Good choice for him. I mean, obviously.
Everyone did well in that.
Everyone did well in that choice.
And honestly,
Yeah.
I'm glad he's not Lestat. I love Tom Hanks, but I don't think he has it within him to be this weird, eccentric over. I mean, maybe he does,
Cool gay boyfriend.
but yeah, like I just don't. I mean, I realize he was in Bosom Buddies, but I just don't think he could pull this off, right?
Now, I think Nicolas Cage would have been a weird outside choice, but especially Nicolas Cage at this time.
Yes.
Wild.
Yes. This is like Castor Troy era
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage. Yeah.
Little face-off action.
Yeah.
What you get with Tom is you not only get someone who can pull off the cruelty and
Yes.
the manipulation, but like we talked about at the very beginning, it's like you also get the statuesque, beautiful vampire.
Yes.
So you've got, because the Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt is just like you taking your two most beautiful dolls and pushing them together.
Yeah.
Because that works out. Because that's what I think sells this, is that they're both just like models of models is what they
Yes,
look like.
they are. Yeah.
So speaking of dolls, Christina Ricci, Lily Sobieski, Julia Stiles, Aaron Moore, Evan Rachel Wood all auditioned before Kirsten Dunst eventually got the role of Claudia.
I mean, they were all great.
Yes.
I think Kirsten Dunst fucking crushes this.
She crushes it.
Yeah.
We mentioned this a little bit in our discussions earlier, but every actor working on this film had to hang upside down for 30 minutes during makeup to then outline their veins. And again, I don't know why they didn't just take pictures, but because your veins fade so fast after doing that, they would have to repeat it multiple times throughout the makeup process. So that actually lengthened the makeup process by hours just to get those veins right, which again, cameras exist, but yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably some conversation that could explain why this was necessary.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
after day one, people are pitching alternatives.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. Now, when Anne Rice wrote the book in 1976, she had Rutger Hauer in mind, who I think would have been a fucking terrifying Lestat.
Yeah.
I think that would have been great.
And pretty.
Yeah.
Because like him in
Blade Runner. Yes.
Yeah, Blade Runner.
Yes. So John Travolta at one point was also asked to play Lestat in a very, very early pre-production period. It doesn't really go anywhere. But that was in the 70s when the book first came out.
Yeah.
They opted not to make the movie because Dracula just came out. Nosferatu, the 1979 version, and Love at First Bite with Nicolas Cage, or Once Bitten came out right after this too. Once Bitten's pretty funny.
Is that the Jim Carrey one? Or is that Nicolas Cage?
Yeah, that's Jim Carrey. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So by the time those movies came out, Rutger Hauer and John Travolta were both considered too old to play Lestat.
Yeah.
Even though apparently Rutger Hauer would also end up as a vampire in both of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie,
Interesting.
and Salem's Lot in 2004. But at the point that they cast Tom Cruise, Anne Rice was furious and said that he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And she recused herself from production. Now, this is something she does a lot. She was very picky about how her work gets translated to film. And so she didn't view the film until a producer sent her a VHS copy. And she was so impressed that she wrote Tom Cruise an apology letter and recorded a 2-minute video endorsing the film. And
I love
then
that.
took out a 2-page ad.
That's eating crow right there, man.
Yeah, man. Like publicly and being like, hey, I fucked up. He nails it.
That's
like,
class.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, in both Vanity Fair and the New York Times, calling this film a masterpiece and specifically citing his performance as part of why she loved it so much. He is her Lestat. She basically refuses to accept anyone else,
Same.
which is tough because he's getting old. But she has not been happy with any future portrayals of Lestat, or was not happy with any future portrayals of Lestat, and then sadly passed away a few years ago and has not seen the most recent AMC version, but she probably would have liked it. Who knows?
Sarah Lestat's fantastic in the AMC series. Great Australian actor.
Nice. Obviously, that's a pretty stark contrast to Queen of the Damned, which she basically disowned.
Yeah.
She hated it so badly, she tried to buy the rights back from the studios. Like, that's how much she hated that movie. And part of the problem with that movie is they only had the rights for a certain amount of time, and they had not been able to do a sequel in that time. Of course, Tom Cruise very busy, Brad Pitt's very busy. No one was able to do the sequel, and they were running out of time, so they smashed 2 movies together to try and get a movie out to retain the rights. And it is Queen of the Damned, and it is terrible.
It's like why the Fantastic Four movies always suck.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's how Queen of the Damned, the crazy movie, happens.
So she pulled a little bit of the Seuss family after watching Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, Cat in the Hat was terrible, but The Grinch is so good. And so I'm
well,
kind of
yeah,
like,
but that was
you
the
know,
movie that they like basically were like, we're not doing any more live action Dr. Seuss movies.
Yeah. Now, in Entertainment Weekly in 2001, Brad Pitt revealed that he had a miserable experience on this film. The makeup was very uncomfortable because he had to hang upside down. The colored contacts made it difficult to see and also dried his eyes out so badly that he had to constantly apply eye drops. And they filmed in an enclosed, dark indoor area, which means that his eyesight suffered for months after the film.
Yeah.
He said that he actually called David Geffen, who produced this film, and begged him to let him quit the movie. But David Geffen basically told him that for him to quit and for them to reshoot what they'd already shot, it would cost $40 million. And so he begged him to basically tough it out for the remaining months, and he did.
Yeah.
But he cites this as being one of his worst filmmaking experiences.
I mean, some of that, like, I think sadness about it shows up in his performance, and I think makes it better.
Yes, it does, honestly.
Because that comes through in his performance.
So this was the highest grossing vampire movie of all time for a decade, until Twilight came out. However, as of 2016, it is still the highest grossing R-rated vampire film of all time, which means it beats out pretty much all of the Blades and many other horror-based vampire movies and all the Underworlds, etc. Now, this was Kirsten Dunst's first on-screen kiss, and neither of them were happy about it.
Yeah.
She says she felt like he had cooties because she's like, I was 12.
Yeah.
And I guess Brad Pitt tried to get it cut out of the movie because he was like, I don't like this at all. Which, credit to both of them that they're both like, this is weird.
It is weird. But I get that she's playing like a 75-year-old woman stuck inside a 10-year-old woman's body, but the visual is still very weird.
Yeah, it's something that it makes sense like in the literary sense, and that you can read this and be like, it's interesting to explore this weird juxtaposition of a child being turned into an immortal being that has to live for forever and that kind of thing. And so it's less creepy when you don't have to like actually literally see a 10-year-old girl, kiss Brad Pitt.
Now, Tom Cruise, Short King, is placed on an elevated platform during most of the scenes in the film to reduce the height difference between him and other vampires, not just Brad Pitt, literally all the other vampires.
Short. Yeah, I forgot.
He's Short King. He also insisted on a private set, so tunnels were built to escort the actors to and from the set. He claims that this was done so that the vampires' makeup effects would remain a secret.
Sure, that's definitely why. I'm sure. Yeah.
I don't know. He's very extreme.
He's a strange man.
Yeah.
He's a strange man.
Yeah.
Now, Anne Rice is credited with the screenplay of this film. However, she did write the initial drafts. It was heavily rewritten by the director. But per WGA rules, the percentage of the material you wrote that contributed to the final product of the film determines who gets writing credit. So Neil Jordan gets some other credits. So sometimes you'll get like a story by credit or a consultant credit or things like that. But Anne Rice is still credited with the screenplay despite multiple changes. The historic plantation that they shot on in Mississippi is a historical building with essentially a tour, and there's a guest book that is on display signed by both Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
Love that.
And then I'll end with this one because it's of a personal nature that I'm very happy about. According to Kirsten Dunst, and this is the origin of this Hollywood story, Tom Cruise sends her a coconut cake with white chocolate chips every Christmas. She refers to it as the Cruise cake, and she's always excited to receive it, admitting that the cake never lasts a day. Tom Cruise has continued to do this for like 20 years. He sends out like 100 cakes a year to people who have worked with him on movies. Every single person that has had this cake swears that it is the most delicious cake they have ever had.
I read about this somewhere.
Yes. The bakery is 10 minutes away from my new house. I tried to get one.
And they're like, you can only get one through Tom, so no.
No, you can absolutely buy them. They're like $100, but like, you know, whatever. But there's like a 2-year waiting list. Like, it's crazy.
Paige, put us on
are
that
you on the
waiting
waiting
list.
list?
We will do this.
Instead of getting on the waiting list, I made one because you can find very similar recipes. And I'm here to tell you, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's delicious.
You've had a Tom cake.
I had a Tom cake. I do eventually want to taste like Pepsi Challenge, the original
Yeah,
with
like
the
the
one
real
I
thing?
made.
That'd be fun.
And I made it this week. I still have one slice left in my fridge. But
Tom, if you're out there and you're interested, come on down to Paige's
test
fridge.
it out.
Yeah.
Come test it in my fridge. I baked it in my new kitchen. But I did a ton of research on like what they're doing in the recipe based on people who've had. I watched videos of people taste testing the like a whole thing, and came up with a recipe. And the product I got from the recipe I made was amazing. So I can only imagine that cake is phenomenal. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for Interview with the Vampire in 1994?
40 million.
Okay.
I'm going to say 60.
I know the answer, so I'll
You'll have to recuse
myself
yourself.
from this.
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, the budget was $50 million.
You can tell. You could see it on the screen.
I agree. It's like a bunch of stars at the time, and everything looks expensive and beautiful.
Yes.
If you adjust that for inflation, that's a little over $100 million. It's $101.8 million today. Now, this movie came out on November 11th, 1994, and it was number one the week it came out. It beat the number 2 movie, The Santa Claus, that also premiered that week. I guess
Definitely
they
what
should
I
have.
saw that week.
Yeah, they should have in that trailer really shown off that hair effect, and then Santa Claus might have been number 1 that week. Stargate was number 3, Pulp Fiction was number 4, and Frankenstein was number 5. What do you think Interview with a Vampire made its opening weekend?
I mean, was it a blockbuster? Did he get 100 million?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not in its opening weekend, though.
And remember, it's 94.
Rated R, 1994.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 25 million.
Yeah,
All right.
I was going to guess like 2025.
I was going to say 30, but yeah, I'm guessing over time. Did I get it?
You're close. It was $36.3
Wow,
million.
it did well.
All right,
So
all
it
right,
did.
all right.
It beat all of our expectations for sure. But Paige, as you were saying, it was in the theaters from November 11th through the weekend of March 3rd, 1995.
Because it has to go through Oscar season.
Yeah, and so that's 17 weeks it was in theaters. So, and for its first 5 weeks, it was in the top 4. And then for the first 6 weeks, it was in the top 10. So it held pretty well in theaters. But what do you think it made domestically in the box office in 94?
97.
Okay. Mikey, what do you think?
125.
All right. Now, John, do you know or do you have to continue recusing?
I know how much it made total.
Okay. I have that too. We'll talk about that.
Domestic, I'm gonna go like it's got to go over 100. I think it was like 115, maybe even higher. Like I actually, my gut is like 150.
Okay. So it's actually 105. So $105.2 million. But, as you were getting to, John, it did make a lot overseas as well.
Yeah.
So the international market was 118.3 million, putting the total worldwide, and again, this is 1994 dollars, at $223.5 million, which if you adjust for inflation is $455.3 million today.
So pretty amazing for a rated R
Yes.
vampire horror romance.
Yes.
Yeah.
For this to have come in at the 50 million mark in 94 and still make almost five times that. Like, that's amazing. That's great. I'm sure David Geffen was thrilled. And that's one of the reasons he's like a 10 billionaire. Like, that dude's so rich.
Well, this is right around the time that they found DreamWorks, SKG, Spielberg, Katzenberg, Geffen. And so, like, this is part of the money that founds DreamWorks.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is your box office. Mike, you want to hit him with that scary scale?
Yeah, our scary scale listeners, how scary we found the film today. Our 1 example is Ghostbusters, and our 10 example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. John, if you want to go first, how scary did you find it when you watched it?
When I watched it as an adult?
Yeah, today.
Today, I mean, it's not that scary. Of the horror stuff, it's much more like emotionally scary, like when they're having those emotional scenes. Like I talk about like the woman being thrown into the coffin and screaming, that's scarier than Lestat getting his throat cut and, bleeding out on the floor. Because I find moments like that of like, that's like abuse. That's human cruelty. I find that scarier. I guess in the end, the Parisian vampires does get a bit horrific. Yeah. Because they are, them on the stage with the woman. It's very scary.
It is. If you have any amount of empathy in your body, that scene is horrific to you. Yeah.
Santiago's a great, scary villain. Yeah. And the final fight in the end is good. But it's pretty mild. I put it almost probably middle of the road, like a 5 or a 6.
That's pretty high.
Yeah, this is why we shouldn't let guests go first. Yeah,
no, it's at a 10. We got to be better about our scale.
I do think that we're bad at the scary scale because we're always like, it's a 1, it's not scary.
But in a scale of 1 to 10, I stick at a 5. I still think that it's got enough scary moments that it's not the most like milquetoast thing ever, but anything above a 5, I think is where things start really getting like tense and raising your heart rate and that kind of thing. Because this movie doesn't do it.
No. Yeah. But I mean, I would give this, when I first saw it, probably a 5 or a 6. Yeah. Because I was probably 15, 16 when I first saw it. And I am super scared of scary movies. So this probably would have been one of the scarier ones I saw before we started this podcast. But today it was a 1 because I've seen it like 8 times, Yeah. So once you've seen it, it's almost like comforting just to sit through and watch it. Yeah.
Once you've seen it, it's not scary at all. So if I'm going off of like I watched this week, it's a 1.
Yeah, but I agree. The first time, it is up there.
Whereas I can rewatch, like I rewatched Paranormal Activity with my girlfriend recently who never seen it, and I love that movie, and it still creeps me out.
Yeah,
it does
it's still
really
scary.
good.
That's fuck. Yeah, those jumps, man.
Yeah. So I get that. I understand it more now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we need to give the guests context for the scary scale before we.
No context. Yeah. I like this. I like this discussion. Paige, what do you think?
It's a 1 for me, and to be honest, even the first time I saw it, it was a 1 for me because I think I was too dickmatized by Brad Pitt.
Okay, Todd.
I'm gonna give it a 1 today. I already said mine. Do yours.
I think I'm gonna do 3.
Okay.
Love it.
Interesting.
I love it.
Okay. All right.
So I have a question, Todd. Since you're not the horror person, what's the scariest movie to you?
That's Hereditary. Hereditary is definitely up there. But for me, like you were mentioning, the cruelty towards like the innocents in this movie was more horrific to you or scary to you than like the gore. Yeah. I'm sort of the same way. So like that stuff gets me more than gore. Sometimes we just did Hellraiser 2, which is a terrible, terrible movie, but the gore in that is like really effective. So that sort of did get me too. So there is a threshold where gore does mess with me. But it's typically more like jump scares and then like innocence being harmed or injusticiness sort of stuff that happens a lot in horror movies, unfortunately. But it's that kind of stuff that really scares me. I'm just like Paige and I and Mikey, when we were at Panic Fest, saw the Rise of Evil Dead or whatever, Evil Dead Rise
Evil
or whatever.
Dead Rise,
and your Apple Watch will like be like, hey, your heart's beating and you're sitting down. Like, what is happening? Or your heart's rapidly beating and you're sitting down.
Yeah, your heart rate is elevated.
My heart rate monitor on my watch kept going off to the point Paige like commented on it in the movie. She was like, why does your watch keep going off? And I was like, it's my heart.
That's funny.
Yeah. So like people are like, you've watched, what episode are we on? 250 something horror movies?
Yeah.
Like, why are you not used to them? And it's like, I just cannot handle the anxiety of it.
That's funny.
I'll never enjoy it really. Like, well, I enjoy these kind of movies that aren't super scary, but or the horror comedies we do, I enjoy. It's the super scary ones, fuck me up, man.
I imagine Blade didn't get to you.
No, I love Blade.
No, Blade is awesome.
But if we're, and what else did we see at Panic Fest that was great? The one about
Renfield.
Yeah, Renfield was great.
Renfield.
I have not seen that, but that's a comedy.
Yeah,
it's so
great.
fun.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that I jive with. The actual scary horror, fucks me up.
Yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us here on our interview with the vampire episode. In fact, it's suggesting that we do this movie.
I'm so glad you let me pick, and I'm so glad I got to. I'm so glad when I was looking through you guys' catalog, I was like, they haven't done an interview. This would be fun. This would be a really fun one to do.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything that you would like to have our listeners check out of yours? Because I know you create a lot of stuff, both for Rooster Teeth and various other entities.
Sure. I would love for any of your audience to, if they're interested in things like comics and X-Men, I do an X-Men podcast called Class of X.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's basically the premise is that I've grown up as a comic book reader and never had a friend that was as avid of a comic book reader as me. And so now I force my friends who never read comics to read an X-Men story with me, and then we talk about it, and we try to see if they understand what the hell is going on in this story that's been happening for 70 years.
I was going to say for so long.
I love that context because they're only reading that one book, right?
Yeah.
So they have no context. I love that, John.
A lot of people, because of the movies, now have context of these characters to a certain extent. Like Storm and Cyclops and Wolverine are now part of your lives.
Right.
But when we get into the minutia of crazy stories like that from
who's
1980s.
Jubilee?
Yeah. Well, they even the cartoons introduced that, but there's even more like obscure characters and stories that I love. So yeah, I've been doing with friends for a bit, so it's a great show. I'd love to have any of you on if you have
I would
any
love to do
desire.
that.
Mikey's been working his way through the cartoon.
Cartoon fan.
Okay.
I've been rewatching it.
I grew up on the cartoon as well. Yeah.
Then I'll have to hit you guys up and have you on it because
I'd love that.
It's fun. You just have to be willing to read some comics.
Of course.
I have a bunch of them right here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not X-Men, but
Love it. I love it then.
Well, John, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
This was a delight. Thank you.
So this week, John, you made us watch Interview with the Vampire. What are we watching next week?
It's a listener request.
Oh, yeah. So we had the listeners decide on what movie they would like to have us do. And of course, the theme this month was sequel month. So the sequels that the listeners narrowed down to were Bride of Chucky, Scream 5, Evil Dead Rise, and Final Destination 3. And even though Bride of Chucky took an early lead, it lost out to Evil Dead Rise. So your homework for next week is to go see Evil Dead Rise in theaters, which I think it still is, or stream it if it's streamable, and check back next week for that episode. So Mikey, do you have a review for us to read?
absolutely I do, kind of.
Well, whose review are you going to read this week, sort of?
I'm going to read Not Sydney Voth.
What does Not Sydney Voth have to say?
Title of review, hey, Mikey, winky emoji.
Someone's a fan.
They say, I love this podcast. I've been watching horror movies for what seems like my whole life, and I always want to discuss them, but everyone just looks at me funny when I do. This podcast makes it feel like I finally found my people. I love how Paige makes me think further into things than I would have while also providing my favorite part, the fun facts.
Pages, fun facts.
Mikey brings a great perspective when it comes to mental health while also being lighthearted. Oh,
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
and Todd is amazing.
Also, absolutely true.
I mean, she used the least amount of words to describe your part, and that's fine. I just want to point that out.
Because brevity is the source of wit. Also, it's clear
Oh, wait,
that...
she comes up. She keeps going. Hold on. I love the catchphrases he comes up with and listening to how scared and uncomfortable he was while watching something I watch as a comfort show, such as Evil Dead 2013. 20 out of 10 would recommend to anyone and everyone. Perfect trio, 5 stars.
Well, thank you, Not Sydney Voth, for that awesome 5-star review. And if you want to have Mikey read your 5-star review, leave us a 5-star review. So, guys, if you like this show but want to hear this power throuple on another movie review show about romance and romantic comedies, check out Romancing the Pod, where Mikey, Paige, and I break down and make fun of romantic movies. It's a lot of fun, guys. Check it out. If you want to follow us on social, please do. We are at Horror Virgin or online at horrorvirgin.com. If you want to follow us all individually, you can do that as well. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Twitter or Rampage Wesley everywhere else, including TikTok. Mikey is at mrandolph24 and I am at Todd J. Awesome. If you like the show so much and you want to help financially support it, please do by going to patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where you can get a lot of great levels and a lot of great stuff like bonus episodes, director's cut episodes, episodes where they're a little bit longer and you get them actually a day earlier than the regular feed drop. We do a lot of great things like listener requests and stuff like that. So guys, check out the Patreon and help support the show.
If you want to financially support me, but not Todd, just look me up on Venmo.
If you can't financially support the show, that's understandable. That's fine. But if you want to hang out with us on the daily, join the Facebook group at facebook.com/group/horrorvirgin. We also link it like once a week. So just find it there and join the awesome Facebook group. Literally, we're in there talking every day. It's awesome. And guys, we got a P.O. box. So if you want to send us some love letters or whatever you might send to a P.O. box, it's actually not a P.O. box. It's like a regular street address. It's pretty awesome. It's 6688 Nolensville Road, number 108-34, Brentwood, Tennessee 37027. So send us some stuff.
Yeah.
And if you want to check out our Twitch stream, we're at twitch.tv/ToddAwesome, where we will be playing horror video games. So if you have always wondered what it would be like to watch me get scared, you can now do that on Twitch while I play these horror games. It's twitch.tv/ToddAwesome, guys. Check it out. It's a lot of fun for you. Not a lot of fun for me. And if you haven't noticed, since October 1st, we have been running the new Horror Virgin blog. And when I say we, I really mean Katie from the Facebook group. She's been running everything. She's like the managing editor of the Horror Virgin blog. So if you haven't been to our Horror Virgin blog, go check it out. It's at horrorvirgin.com/blog. You'll see it. It's awesome. There's a lot of great articles. I mean, at the end of October, we have 31 awesome articles up, but check out our awesome Horror Virgin blog up now. This episode was brought to you by Tia, and Tia's teenager's been like driving her crazy this week. So how has Tia's teenager been driving her crazy?
She killed a lady and then hid her in a pile of dolls.
Jesus, that escalated quickly. And what have we told you, Tia's teenager? No
Not
eating
in the house.
So this episode also brought to you by Jonathan, and Jonathan wants to make us watch some videos. So I'm going to make you guys watch a video right now. Oh, this one's called Bruce Campbell Chainsaw.
Oh, hi. Groovy Bruce.
Oh, wait, is this Bruce Campbell singing? Oh, no, not singing. Oh, I love this, though.
Selling a chainsaw.
I love how he's just like at a bar and he's got his chainsaw still on his hand. Like the realities of having a saw for a hand are very funny to me when they're just played out in this type of like low stakes scenario. God, Bruce Campbell is amazing.
Yes.
He handed the money over on the chainsaw. Fuck.
That's amazing.
Have always and will always love Bruce Campbell.
Yes.
Dude's amazing.
Groovy Bruce forever.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for that awesome video and the support. We now return you to another episode of the Patreonicals.
Okay, open up Patreonicals. This week's episode is Vance, who's H.H. Holmes, sneaks into the new fish tank part of Allie's fish tank and tries to murder her with 2 knives.
Oh, no.
She splashes and yells, and Kate comes in and psychically stops him and pulls him out and was like, and Captain Bruder's like, we have to have a vote of what we're going to do. And Driscoll, everybody gathers up and Driscoll's like, okay, we need to kick him out of our group because he's really the only villain left in this little group. And then Isaac's like, I don't eat people anymore. I'd also like to not be kicked out. And they're like, this isn't about you. We already dealt with that a couple weeks ago. Karun and Natasha, our blue alien couple, now they say, yes, he is bad. We've already seen enough death. Get him out of here. Bo Easy is like, yes, he is an actual murderer. And as a Florida man, we believe in the death penalty, but whatever.
Okay.
Jeremy with laser eyes says, I see with my laser eyes that he is evil and he needs to go.
I've got laser eyes.
Uh-huh.
I feel the madness between you and I. Oh, oh, oh.
Lauren, the cave person,
Laser eyes.
bangs club twice on the floor, which means, yes, they vote to kick them out.
Gotcha.
Mr. Rage Bomb was like, I just vote yes. I can't talk about it because I don't want to blow up. Here's a firework. And he shoots a firework. Garotica, the heavy metal bitch, is like, yeah, of course, he should go. And Sanzi, the AI robot, was like, I have created a escape pod thing where we can just maroon him into space so we don't actually kill him.
They're going to drop him off on a space island.
Yeah, Andrew, the last Russian officer, was like, he needs to leave. They used my little Russian capsule to make the escape pod. I'm all for it. And Jennifer with a PH is like, good, happy to be here. I vote with I'm not going to like vote against the group. So yes, I vote that they also go.
She doesn't want to rock the proverbial space boat.
Space
so they
boat.
lock him into a escape capsule and lock him out. And then like 2 weeks go by.
Oh, wow.
And the Death Mon finds the escape pod, brings it in. And Alex the magician holds up a curtain and then drops it. And then there stands Vance. And they're like, Vance.
Which is actually H.H. Holmes, if I remember correctly.
And so he stands there and they're like, Wes, the handsome dude, is like, you got to run, Vance. And Aaron, the moon general, was like, our queen has something to tell you. And Libby, the new moon queen, is like, look, we're going to kill all those motherfuckers.
All right.
We're chasing them down. We're conquering the galaxy. You're a stone cold killer. Come on in on our team. And he's like, deal, let's go. And that's the end of the Patreonicals of this episode.
Oh, man, I love where this is going. But I guess we'll have to wait to find out what happens next on another episode of the Patreonicals.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ooky spooky.
Have an amazing week.
Bye! One time a girl told me I reminded her of Lestat nerds.
Oh, that's not a good thing.
You remind
That's
us
not-
of Pee Wee
that's-
Herman and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We've already been over this so many times.
I wish the side-by-side photo of both of us at the time wasn't so accurate.
It's my favorite.
All right, let's
It's
go.
my top 3 jokes I've ever made on the podcast.